But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
It used the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars.
The woke mob, all they can do is lie. These are the front lines.
Welcome, my name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse.
How's it going, Drew? How are you?
Dude, love you, man. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Feels like I just saw you like 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, so we got this bonus episode planned for you guys where Kyle and I are just gonna wing it, freestyle it, and see where this conversation goes. Let's start here. You are a lover boy. Even at AmFest, remember when we were on stage at AmFest and there were like signs of chicks trying to get your attention? So I am curious, how's your love life going?
Yeah, I'm talking to a girl right now I really like. I'm not gonna say her name, but she's gonna see this and she's going to yell at me.
Why?
Oh, no idea, but I'm gonna get yelled at.
Just because you mentioned her?
Thank you for throwing me under the bus, Drew, at AmFest.
Well, hey, if you guys eventually get married, welcome to the club. That's just, marriage, I guess. But marriage is awesome, okay?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people coming out of the trial, it's like, Kyle's this evil white supremacist. He showed up to, murder a bunch of black and brown people, and people view you as like this political operative. Like you planned this. Like there are literally people out there that are like, this dude must have really planned this. Like he's an alt-right plant. This was all set up, all the conspiracy theorists on the left. But like you're a normal person.
Yeah, like I'm not a political person. I don't know much about politics, Drew.
Yeah.
Like,
so what is
I honestly don't.
What do you want to be? Like what do you want to do with your life? What do you aspire to become? Especially now post the trial and stuff, but where are you heading?
Well, Drew, I want to be a criminal defense attorney. I'm in college right now, and I'm also learning to be a pilot right now, which is very exciting. I'm learning to fly a little 172 right now, and it's difficult, but I love it.
Dude, I wonder how that's going to go. I mean, if people find out that Kyle Rittenhouse is flying our plane, white supremacists, but I think you'll be able to accomplish it, man. I mean, we've been seeing that at ASU and some of these colleges that you've been wanting to attend. How does that make you feel, man, when you get discriminated against? Like you literally do because of the color of your skin. How do you react to that stuff? Not the school.
Okay.
It's these psycho-socialists that are on campus that come at you this way. Like how does that make you feel?
It hurts a little bit, and we launched TMAP, as we talked about earlier, tmap.org, to hold the media accountable that made these people believe that's what happened. Like the video we played earlier of that one girl at the ASU protest. The media has tamed these people to believe that.
Yeah. How has it been post the trial in terms of, are you still getting death threats? Are you,
every day.
for myself, when I came off the stand during the trial, people were, sending me death threats, which is nothing new. Antifa's been doing that, BLM.
Didn't somebody send you, told you to, go commit suicide? I remember that.
Yeah, people were telling
Twitter.
me to kill myself, the whole 9 yards.
Just because you told the truth.
Just because I told the truth, right?
Yeah, you were only under oath.
Only under oath.
Like,
and do you remember that time in the trial when I was testifying and Binger was like, "Now I'm going to remind you, Mr. Hernandez, you're under oath." And the judge was like, "Hey, you don't need to do that."
He knows.
He knows. Like literally trying to threaten me.
What is your favorite part of the entire trial, Drew?
When you were vindicated.
Mine
just
too.
Be honest.
Mine too.
But in terms of things that were unfolding, I mean, aside from me dealing with Binger, that was just fun, to be honest, because I knew that he didn't have anything, right? And I sent all of the footage to him, and the prosecution and the defense, they both had everything. And so for me, I guess my favorite part was just slaughtering a dude that thought he could destroy me publicly. But like I said, apart from you being vindicated, that was, being a part of it was my favorite part. But there were other ones too. Like Richie McGinnis did a great job. There were all kinds of, I think when I think when the public started to realize that they've been lied to because so much evidence was coming out in the trial, like we could see this happening like in real time, like when the trial was happening.
Like how everybody said I crossed state lines.
Exactly, the crossing the state lines. So much stuff started to come out that didn't add up to the fake news media narrative. Like none of it. There were so many people that had no idea that you did not shoot a single black person. Like stuff like that was just like very interesting to watch happen in real time. Like just light bulbs going off in people's heads. So what would you say is your, I don't even know if you could answer this, your favorite part in the trial?
When Nathan DeBrune testified and Mr. DeBrune, ADA Krause said, I forget the question, but the judge was like, that's not what he said. And then Nathan was like, yeah, that's not what I said. Get it right.
Oof.
That was my favorite part of the trial. Other than being acquitted,
Yeah.
that was a pretty spicy there was a lot of spicy moments.
There was a
in
lot.
that.
And I just think Binger was just, he's just an idiot. I'm sorry, man. If someone like me that's not trained in anything legal could go toe-to-toe with a guy like that, I mean, I think that's just more of a testament of how much he actually sucks and doesn't know what, I don't know, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more. But on another note, all honesty, it was a very long, painful trial. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
It was tough. And just having to deal with that every day definitely takes a toll on your life. And you got to stay close to God, and just gotta know everything's gonna be okay, and God will be there for you.
You said something at AmericaFest that really shocked me because it's a very, I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm born again. I'm not ashamed of that. And going through trials and tribulations, you know, the New Testament teaches very clearly that we continue to go through these things and count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you might be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Basically, continue to endure. God's got this in the end, right?
Exactly.
Don't let go. You said something at AmericaFest that was like, whoa. You said that you were praying or you were thinking within yourself that no matter what the outcome is,
I know God will be there with me.
exactly.
And I just told Charlie Kirk this. I said this several times in almost all my interviews, but it's true. Never prayed for an acquittal.
Exactly.
God knew what I knew I wanted an acquittal, and he gave that to me. But I prayed for the strength to get through whatever happened. And I prayed that the Lord gave the jury the strength to come to the right decision, and he gave them that strength.
How did you react to, do you remember when, I don't know if it was MSNBC, I think it was, can't remember, but do you remember when they were following the jurors?
That was MSNBC.
right? That was crazy.
Who else? Who else in MSNBC?
Like literal jury intimidation,
Trying to
dox
jury.
them. Like how did you react to that?
I was like, they're trying to do anything they can to put me away in prison the rest of my life. They called me a white supremacist and a racist. They lied about that, but now they're trying to dox the jury, following the jury van.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how low you can get. It's probably the lowest you can get.
You know, it's crazy, the reaction from like, not even like political entities. Like there's like these like, are you familiar with like DJ academics and like these SoundCloud rappers? You know different SoundCloud rappers that are out there. Like they react to you very interestingly because you'll come out and say something and they just totally react to it and like, I can't believe Kyle said this, can't believe Kyle said this. And it's just like, how do you feel being such a public figure now, bro? Like you are famous, but at the same time you're infamous. That's like a negative view of being famous because there's people out there that hate you. How has your life changed, man? Like you say something and it's just out there. Like
It's difficult. It's not a life I ever wanted to live, but I do have to say, the hardest part of it, so I was going through the Twitterverse today. You know what they said about me?
what are they saying now?
They said I was looking fat. That really hurt my feelings, guys. It really hurt. It's like, oof, just like pushing it right there.
You know, there's something that, you know, a lot of conservatives is like, you know, the left can't meme. And you're a memer, by the way, right? Yeah. They can't meme, they can't insult, they steal. Like, that's all they have against you. It's like, oh, hey, look, Kyle looks fat now. It's like pretty ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it is crazy. It must be life-changing. I mean, my life changed after the trial. Things shifted.
It's difficult.
Totally, but nowhere near as you, man. I mean, how has this impacted your family? I know you have like full-time security detail. Like, what's going on? How's that?
It's been difficult. Like my family is scared to go out. My mom had to quit her job. I have to have 24/7 security. It's because of these lies that the media said, and that's why we're going to hold them accountable at tmap.org.
Absolutely. What do you like? Like, what do you love to do? I know you were snowboarding over the break, right?
I'm still snowboarding.
Yeah?
You know,
something
I'm really
new?
upset, Drew, because you pulled me out the day we got some fresh powder.
I did?
We got some fresh powder. We were leaving to drive to the airport, and we got a powder dump, and thanks to you, I couldn't go snowboarding, Drew.
I repent, Kyle. I repent. Just kidding. Hey, well, thank you that you came anyways, because...
You know, I was that close to not coming because I was like, powder, catch some fresh pow, because we haven't got much other than December.
Or love for your boy.
I was like, you know, I gotta show my boy some support.
Good. I'm thankful for that, man. But aside from snowboarding, people, like, one of the things that, you know, Elijah and myself, like, have talked about when, like, you know, when we're going to interview you or talk about you, and even like Jack Posobiec, we've talked about this, is like, you've been so demonized, and I said this at AmericaFest, is like, this young man has been so demonized and slandered. It's like your humanity has been stolen from you.
And I have to regain it back every single day.
Yes.
I have to fight these lies that these media organizations pushed on me and my family. Nobody should ever have to experience that. Yeah. Nobody should have to go through that.
It's truly horrific. It really is horrific, because I know there were some things going around that you were considering changing your name. I don't know if that was real or a rumor, but people are saying that. I mean, like, is that honestly
I
something
considered
you're
it, but I don't think I'm gonna do it. I mean, I get recognized walking into a store with mask and sunglasses on.
Really?
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
Almost every day. I just get recognized like that.
Like the airport, gas station, Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. I don't like Taco Bell.
What do you like?
What do I like? Qdoba. I love Qdoba, and I love Chipotle.
Wow.
Love
Some
Chipotle.
white supremacist.
Oh, there's this Mexican restaurant.
You are such a horrible white person. How dare you? How dare you steal Mexican food from Mexicans?
But there's this Mexican restaurant right by my house. Oh, they have the best tacos ever. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry, but they're like fried, and then they have the like sauce you dip it in.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, it's delicious.
There you go. There you go. White supremacist loves Mexican food. It doesn't get any better than that. He's the most self-loathing white supremacist I've ever met in my life. I don't know what to do with this guy, guys. But dude, so there were people like making memes of you, and they were making jokes like all over social media. I was getting a bunch of, you know, inquiries of questions to ask you. Would you ever consider making the official Kyle Rittenhouse Halloween costume?
No.
So many people were asking that question, but I think it's pretty iconic. I mean, even when you walked in with the green shirt today, people identify green shirts with you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Drew.
I'm making you laugh because I love you. People need to see him as a human.
You know, I can't wear suits anymore because you guys don't like yellow ties, apparently. I don't get it. I can't wear suits. Like, I wear a burgundy shirt and a yellow tie, and apparently I don't match. And I look like the mascot for Dollar General. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
It's like, it just seems like no matter what you do, you just, you know, people just, I mean, they already hate you.
Yeah, pretty much.
But no matter what you
wait
do.
till they find out that I'm an advocate. I love Lululemon. It's one of the only clothing brands I wear. Wait till they find that out.
There you go. Can you imagine if Kyle Rittenhouse cured cancer? Like what would happen?
The mainstream media would probably say white supremacist.
They would probably say that like you gave people cancer or something.
Yeah, that's probably
like,
how it would be twisted.
I think at this point there's like nothing Kyle could do, even cure cancer, because it's just, but it just proves to you like the hate in these people's hearts. Like they hate you so much that no matter what you do, even if you're vindicated, they just continue. Evil people.
There's no stop, and these people are going to be held accountable. They're going to be sued, and we're going to hit them where it hurts, their wallets.
Let me ask you this on a serious note. So when you came to AmFest, you're obviously a superstar. Everyone's asking about you. A lot of young people look up to you. They really do. Not because of what you did in Kenosha, but because of how you endured the trial. Like you have become this symbol of justice in the eyes of a lot of young people. How does that make you feel?
It's a hard straw to grasp, but I can say, like, I can give some advice on it. How I got through that, though, is I prayed and I stuck with my walk with the Lord, and I just stayed strong because it was hard, it was difficult, and that's all you can do in that situation. I had to trust my attorneys who did an amazing job, but I just had to stay strong and stay strong with our Lord.
So on the topic of faith, have you always been a believer?
I've always
in God?
I believe in God, but it definitely grew closer when my connection with the Lord definitely got really strong when this situation happened.
That's something you'll never forget.
No, it's not.
You can't forget that.
Definitely feel the Lord with me every day in His presence. It's so strong. I feel it with me everywhere I go.
I know after the trial, there were some rumors going around. Even Jerry Nadler, little midget weirdo, came out and tweeted that they wanted to federally go after you. Has anything come of that at all, or was it all just smoke?
I think it was just smoke. I think they were just mad I acted in self-defense. Like, there was a federal investigation against me when this happened. The FBI investigated me.
The FBI even had a drone out that night.
Yeah, what's about that?
And apparently they had a drone out at like other riots, and you got to ask yourself,
Isn't it illegal to, like, spy on American citizens? Like, surveilling
I
U.S.
think we should
citizens?
ask, I think the NSA, may not have an opinion on that. May or may not have an opinion on that. But it is interesting, especially me covering the riots, when we found out that the FBI had footage that could have really helped you and vindicated you, and they were fully
And was
aware.
spying on American citizens?
Spying
Yeah,
on
help me, but spying on American citizens?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, but
Oh, and then denying it when we send them FOIA requests, denying it, until finally they give it to the state, all decompressed, and then we get it. Like, what's that about? Come on, what's going on, guys?
What was that? What was that like behind the scenes when that was happening, with all of those decompressed footage being sent to them or to you guys, and the good footage they're withholding it? Like, I just think a lot of people during the trial were just like, dude, this is getting ridiculous at this point.
So
It's a clown show.
thank goodness for my team, but I'm sitting there looking at this. I'm like, what the f is this? Sorry for my language, but that's the only thing I can say. I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, what am I looking at?
I think a lot of people were thinking that and feeling that when they were watching everything that happened to you, because it was absurd. A lot of people were pissed. A lot of people were angry. There were even some, conservative groups that were considering protesting for you in your behalf if you didn't get vindicated. But I mean, it's just sad. It's sad that you see the political climate has become so tribalized right now.
One more thing I want to talk about is Joshua Zaminski. I don't know if you've been following his case, but the media isn't giving it any attention.
Yeah.
He intimidated a witness a couple weeks ago and got his trial postponed, and I've been paying attention. Still no charges for witness intimidation.
I think that's how we know it's clearly politically motivated, right? When it's someone that is on their side.
And the guy who tried to ambush and kill me with Mr. Rosenbaum, let's just postpone his trial, and thank goodness the Judge Schrader denied his motion to have his bail reduced, because he had his bail enhanced for intimidating Mr. DeBrune, Nathan DeBrune, for bringing in photos, because, he brought in photos because the government was doing their all photo stuff, and this is what happened. He wanted to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing for Zaminski's trial, and he started intimidating him over that. So
The justice system is definitely corrupt, and I think what happened with you was a miracle. I think a lot of people thought that it wasn't going to end that way.
and thank goodness we have fair judges like Judge Schrader.
They even tried defaming him.
Oh my
Do
gosh,
you remember?
yeah.
Okay, now I remember that.
Yeah.
Remember in the trial when I was sitting there and he made a comment about, what was it? The supply chain? Like Asian food coming from the supply chain or something like that. And oh, he's a racist.
Yeah.
Because
they called him a
he's
racist.
saying that Asian food comes in on boats. So he's talking about the supply chain.
I was like, what the heck is going on? Oh, and I take it back. My other favorite moment from the trial is, oh, that's been basic law for 40, 50 years. Don't get brazen with me. That was just amazing. I'm sitting there on the witness stand, and I'm like, trying to hold my composure. You probably see me a couple times just like biting my lip, but my mouth was bleeding by the end of that trial.
You know what video made me die? Was what was that video? It was you and your lawyer, like pre-trial, way before the trial. Was it Gage?
When Gage fell out of the chair, when Mr. Grosskreutz, no other
the
than
live-
himself, the guy that went on the national news and lied again and perjured himself, saying the exact opposite to what he testified under oath, but didn't get charged with anything for lying on the stand, apparently.
It's all
Well, he
politically
didn't lie on the
motivated.
stand, but he lied to the news and just went on to lie.
Gets a pass.
Gets a
And
pass,
he's,
you know.
what do they call him? The lone wolf, the lone survivor.
Oh, gosh.
It's just a joke, man.
But one thing, you notice who was drunk during the, you probably noticed who was like drunk or high during the trial that also said that they had no idea I wasn't there and didn't ask for our help. They didn't seem so good. They seemed a little intoxicated.
It was a clown show, and what happened to you is a disgrace, and the American people are thankful that you've been vindicated, and I'm so thankful, Kyle, that you're free, you're alive, you've been vindicated, because I wouldn't have gone and vouched for you if I didn't know that that was the absolute truth, and I could prove it with video as well. I mean, I would have testified without the video, but I'm so thankful that you're okay. And I'm glad that you could sit here and laugh about some of this stuff, because I know it's not an easy thing that you and your family have been through. And I just want to thank you, man, for coming,
Drew,
hanging out with me.
Give me a hug, bro.
I love you, man.
Thank you, man.
Love you. Anytime. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we got some more stuff that'll be dropping in the upcoming days. We love you very much. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are on the Frontlines. See you next time. These are the Frontlines.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Thanks a lot, Jack. All right, so we got something a little special for you. We got an exclusive interview with three amazing people, and we're going to start out with Raelynn, country music superstar.
My new friend. I'm so excited because actually later today I interview her on the spillover too. So you're getting a lot of Raelynn content.
Yeah, she is amazing. She's so happy to be there, and that's just one of three amazing interviews we had from AmericaFest 2021. Enjoy our interview with Raelynn. Hey everyone, we're at the Phoenix Convention Center. We got some exclusive interviews all AmericaFest long. Now I'm sitting down with Raelynn,
Hey.
one of the amazing performers we're going to see on stage here at AmericaFest. How's it going so far?
It's freaking awesome. It's a great place to be.
Well,
here at
first off, you
AmericaFest.
look great too.
Thank
Can you show off those
Thank
boots
you.
a little
Yes,
bit more?
Got a little sparkle down here.
Yeah, you're not messing around.
Thank you. I know we had to bring country music to AmericaFest, and there's nothing more country music than rhinestones. So
Yeah, amen.
it's definitely an ode to Dolly Parton for sure.
Because what's your inspiration behind your music too? Because a lot of people saw you on The Voice, you're on
Yes,
the second season
yes.
of that, performed really well,
Thank
and then
you.
you just been making an absolute just movement out of
Thank
what you
you.
do.
Thank
So
you.
what got you into that? Who's your inspiration?
To me, the inspiration behind the music that I do is honestly my fans. I mean, they've been with me for almost 10 years, which is crazy to think. I was on that show when I was 17 years old,
Yeah.
and I'm now 27. And I just love what I do. I love being in country music, and I love writing my truth and writing what is on my heart 24/7. And I think when you're always authentic with being an artist, the fans will always be there, and that's what's been so constant for me.
Well, I feel like that's why people connect with you, especially women.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you so
you're
much.
sharing a lot of great stories about your
Yes.
life and be pretty vulnerable
Yes.
too, because you talk about your faith, you talk about the military. Obviously, you got that military connection there.
Thank you. Yeah, my husband's in the Army, and my brother's in the Army as well. And I have a lot of family that have served. And honestly, it's so funny that people applaud me for being honest and for being
Because
for
people don't
speaking.
see that a lot now.
Yes, but to me, there's no other way to be. If we're not that way, then we're not connecting with people like we should.
Yeah.
And it's really been an incredible journey.
Are you feeling that while you're here at AmericaFest?
Oh
And
my
like people
gosh.
just being really open and honest, where it's like we live in a world where a lot of people are telling you like, no, don't speak the truth. Just it'd be way more convenient if you
Yes.
just went along with a narrative or just kind of shut your mouth with this or maybe spoke up about that. But you're like, no, like this is stuff I want to talk about. It's making a difference.
It's honestly super important, I think. I believe that we should be able to all be in the same, world and speak what we believe in and love each other. Like that's super important. I always say you can't put my heart for people in a box. But we should all respect each other and what they believe. And that's something that I always do, and I also expect in return for me. Whatever I believe, you should respect it. And I'm not going to change your opinion just like you're not going to change mine. And so I feel like it's super important. I think that's why AmericaFest is so awesome. It's just a way to like be recharged for what you believe in, and then just go back out into the world and know that to stand firm.
Do you feel revitalized being
heck
here?
yeah,
Because I was feeling the buzz before, like
Dude,
Charlie and
it's
Tucker got on
awesome.
stage.
They're
And
so great.
It's been amazing.
Yeah. It was so funny to see Tucker come out with all like the pyro. He was like, "Heck yeah, this is awesome!"
I still
just
got
loved it. It
goosebumps
was
from
so.
that.
I did too.
Yeah.
I was like, "This is amazing," and that's what we need right now. It's awesome.
Have you performed at a place like this before? Because, I mean, you've done a lot of performances.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of different venues. And then I was talking to Adam Doliak about it. Where it's
Yeah.
like, it's so nice to be indoors. You got the stadium
Yes.
seating here. You got about 10,000 people like ready to go nuts. Have you seen anything like this stage or like this venue?
I mean, this stage is absolutely stunning and incredible. And it's super powerful. Like, it's just an incredible stage. And I have not performed since I had my daughter. I had my daughter 3 months ago.
Congratulations
Thank
again,
you.
too.
And
then
so,
you look phenomenal, too, like just
you're
had a
so
kid.
Sweet, you're so sweet. I love the fact that this is my first performance back after having my daughter Daisy, because it's just like, it was a great way to end the year. I didn't even think I was going to perform the rest of the year. I was like, we'll just, we'll start back in the new year. And then I got the opportunity to be a part of this, and I said, heck yeah, like I really want to do it. And I just feel so
TPUSA gives
honored.
you a call like,
Yes,
hey, you're not taking this whole Christmas break off. We need
I know.
you.
They were like, listen, we need you right before Christmas. And I was like, this is the best Christmas present. I feel so honored to be here.
So you're going to dedicate this performance to the newborn kiddo?
Oh my gosh, of course. I wish it was her first concert, but it's not. It's the first time seeing mommy perform, but Jason Aldean was her first concert. We took her at 8 weeks old to a Jason Aldean concert, and it was awesome. She just slept the whole time. We had like ear protection headphones on, and she was conked out. But it was awesome.
And then finally, too, like, what do you want people to feel when they see you on stage and they come to an event like this? And then after it's done, like, what do you think people are going to be saying?
Honestly, I hope, of course, they have fun, because I do have a lot of rowdy songs. But
As
I
you
hope
should.
that-
We need
thank
to
you.
get a little bit more rowdy.
Hey,
Come on.
They're all getting drinks. I see them all those crazy kiddos. And I also want them to just feel empowered that people who are in the spotlight want to be here, and they believe in what's going on, and they believe in where we're at, and they believe in AmericaFest. And I think that that's super important. And I feel, like I said, I feel honored to be here because I support that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for spending the
Thank
time
you.
with us, too.
Thank
I can't wait to see you
I
on stage.
appreciate
It's going to
that.
be a
It's gonna
blast.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks again
I
so
know.
much.
I'm like nervous, excited in a good way.
You're going to be great. I can't
Thank
wait.
you so
Thanks
much.
for being here.
Thank you.
Wasn't that just such a great little conversation? She's just so bubbly. She's so happy to be there. And obviously, like, her performance was fantastic that day.
Epitome of a cinnamon roll, as I would say.
It's so fun. Well, we're going to go to commercial break. We'll see you guys in just a little bit.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country is very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for drive, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got a very special episode for you. We just showed you an interview with Raelynn. Now we got another exclusive interview. This one is with comedian Jon Crist from AmericaFest 2021. And you're going to find out how I was basically turned into the third wheel.
Yeah, so fun fact behind the scenes, Jon and I years ago, I mean this is like back in 2017, went out for a few months, okay? And I've never really talked about that publicly because I didn't know if he would want me to talk about it publicly, and he brought it up on the couch.
Spicy.
Yeah, so I don't think Jon was expecting it, but it was super fun, and the conservatives freaked out when they heard about this. So if you want to know what the last text he sent me was to kind of end things, I confront him about that right here on this couch.
It's so good. What a time to be alive, huh? Enjoy this interview with Jon Crist. Hey everyone, we're at AmericaFest 2021. I'm Jon Root, Alex Clark, and one of the funniest guys on planet Earth, Jon Crist, is here.
That's my intro? That's what you decided my intro was?
That's it.
I'll take it. All right, I'll take it.
No, you are. I've been following your stuff for a long time, and it's funny to see the interactions actually with both of you guys. That we actually just had a few people stop by, and they're just so excited to see Alex Clark. And then the interaction you're having is just like, are you actually asking me a question? Do you want a photo? What's going on?
Well, they
here?
kind of like, you know, when you see like your like trainer, but you see him at the post office, you're like, oh, I thought you know him from there, but then you see him in another place, and you're like,
Or your teacher outside of school, like I thought you lived in the classroom.
Yeah. I thought you just make videos all day, and I was like, yeah, I'm out here. Yeah. They don't really know what to say. The same with you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they're always like, you're real.
Yeah, they want to meet you and take a photo, but then I always say, you got to keep moving, because then it kind of breaks down, because then they figure out we're not that cool.
That's what I say.
On the internet, we are 10.
Yeah.
But then they go, what's up? Good to see you. Want to take a photo? And then you go, all right.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, that's got to be the tough part of being a comedian. I mean, even if you're just a funny guy in your little circle of friends, you always have that introduction, and it's like, oh, Jon Crist, comedian.
Yeah.
Hey, he's the funny guy. Can you tell me a joke?
Yeah, and then they go, all right. I go, I'm not working right now. I'm off the clock. Yeah. I wouldn't do that to anyone else. You wouldn't do that to anyone else. Like,
No,
if they
you're
were
right.
like, I'm a baker, or like I'm a doctor. I was like, dude, I got this spot on my, can you look at it? He's
People
like,
do that to doctors and
Do
stuff,
they?
though. Yeah.
That'd probably be the worst profession for that would probably be like some kind of doctor or something personal.
I feel like that was like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode
yeah.
once or something.
Hey, can I get? You're like, dude, not right now, right here. but to meet one of those people that costs thousands of dollars, who'd be like, I got a question about it.
Yeah.
Can you come into the bathroom and take a look? Yeah, you want to do that.
And this is your first time ever at like a huge conservative event, right?
Yeah. And this guy I was wearing this outfit actually, but he was wearing it, so I was like,
You traded?
Dude, look at
I
those
gotta
light up
switch.
shoes.
Yeah, you look good, man.
It does the same outfit. I was like, we can't. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I came in with that, but.
Well, like you were saying, this is a conservative Coachella, so we got to.
I like that conservative
nice.
Coachella. Yeah, there's a lot of. There's probably some fashion moves out here that I probably wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
Some people go a little hard.
Yeah.
You
We
know?
were talking about what is like the like a young conservative woman starter kit. You know,
Ooh, the
Break
young
it down.
conservative woman starter kit.
It's like you gotta wear, because it's politics, so you can't be looking like you're going to the club.
Right.
But you gotta be like, what's the pantsuit, but like just the top.
Yes,
but
definitely
longer.
like a skirt, a little crop top with a matching crop blazer.
Yeah, then you could be like, hey,
boots.
listen, this is my stance on immigration. Also, like, DM me.
That's what they do.
Also,
and you were
like, what-
saying, you were a little shook because you were like, well, I didn't know that conservative women were so hot.
Okay,
I was
hold
shocked
on.
to hear that.
Wait, no, I was just, like if you go to like, I'm trying to think of like Bible camp or something, you're like it's very like homely looking, but then you go here, you're like, oh, this is different than I thought.
This is different than you
Yeah.
thought.
They're
no,
like,
it's actually scientifically proven that conservative women are hotter than liberal women.
Is it?
It's
I can
a
get
real
on board
study.
with that. Yeah, I get on board with that.
Yep.
But if you think about like a Christian woman, you'd be like, nah, I'm good. But then there is a lot of like churches that are young and trendy and you're like, oh, this is different than what I thought. I didn't say stereotypical. I didn't think conservative women were ugly. I just came here and I'm like, huh. Well, these are like upper echelon.
True.
Right?
Oh, turning point event women, or we're
yeah.
above the rest.
All right, so where am I going to go? Like, what kind of rally would I have to go to in what state that I'd be like, I'm good?
Oh, God.
No, we shouldn't say it. That's funny, though.
I mean, we could say some things that would probably offend some people.
Politically canceled.
Yeah,
That's
politically
hilarious.
canceled.
Yeah. Is that a thing? Yeah.
When you think of Bible camp, I think you always think of like just that old school homeschool girl.
Yeah, like
where
a
it's
jean
kinda like,
skirt.
Yeah, she's never talked to a guy before at all.
Yeah.
That's not the way conservatives.
What's wild is a lot of the women here, young women here, were homeschooled.
Of course they were. Yeah.
But turned out
it's
cute.
different than than church because there's one less constraint.
Yeah.
Everybody's still kind of like faith-ish. Would you say?
Right. Yeah.
But also,
Well, there's a whole praise and worship session this morning.
this I think this whole event is like, worship, but also cleavage. That's probably a fair. Is that fair?
I think that's pretty
Yeah,
fair.
we're conservative. We're conservative
on
on
the
morals,
team,
but a little bit like, hey, what's up?
Hey, listen, we're gonna pray before brunch, but also there's an open bar.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that.
That's turning
There
point.
is bottomless
yeah.
mimosas. That is what we're doing, ladies.
Okay,
Who's
so
that?
what's one of the, besides seeing that the girls here are pretty cute,
That's not. Listen.
what else, John?
That's not my
number one.
premise.
Yeah,
I was just
what else
like,
have you seen that has surprised you so far at AmericaFest?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, you're like, that checks out.
Any speakers or did you see any of the concerts last night?
Yeah, we saw Raelynn and Brantley Gilbert.
Okay.
And it was Adam Doliak. It was unbelievable.
It was really good.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, the production is unbelievable. If anyone was like, I don't know if I should go to that, 100% should come.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are like very, very like-minded people that are everybody's. But then, like I was saying earlier, there's also this. If you are let's say a moderate, this is like extreme. Not extreme, but like this is on the right.
This is definitely conservative.
Yeah, so you come in here and you're like, all right, I'm like right wing, but then there's people outside picketing,
of course,
that are more right wing. You're like,
right.
Oh, I'm on the left now.
You should do some kind of, one video that you haven't made yet, which I think you should.
Tell me, Alex.
You should do a spoof like you are trying out for Antifa. And you're going to their meetings and you're trying to blend in.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to, yeah. Well, when I came in here, it's funny, when I came in here, I didn't have any, they just told me to come and they're like, we'll take care of you when you get here. So I didn't have any.
Badges or anything?
Nothing. And I was like blocked by like 7 people. I go, oh, this is like, there's an opposition to this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's other people that are trying to, I was like, oh, I love it.
It's very safe, very secure.
Yeah. But there are, the people trying to, Just like if you try to go into Joel Osteen's church, they're like, what's your purpose?
Unless you're there to contribute some money to the the wall in the bathroom.
Oh,
I mean, just think about all the plumbers there. They want that job now.
What's going on?
They're like plumbers around a big mega church.
Yeah.
Or I guarantee it's not just happening at Joel's church.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But I would say that you never have to really argue about if there's opposition to whatever you're doing. I mean, my comedy, the only time people are ever offended is the truth.
Of course.
I don't want to be like that's if it wasn't true, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant to anyone. When it's like, my dad is a politician. He's a pastor and he's a politician. He's the mayor of our city. I don't want to brag, but and he told me, he goes, a politician, me and you are in essence doing the same thing. Yeah. You look around, you see your community, you see and you don't like it. You don't like the way it's going, and you want to try to change it. He's trying to change it through ideas and laws, and I'm trying to change it by exposing it and making fun of it. And it's you're doing the same. And you guys the same. Yeah. At some point, you looked and you go, I don't like this.
That's so interesting.
And
I like that.
Like,
if it wasn't true, they wouldn't be so offended.
It wasn't true. Like people make jokes about me about being gay on the internet constantly, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I don't know if you think that. That's fine. It's not true. So it doesn't. Right. I don't have to defend It's just not true. So
Right. It's funny. You can make fun of yourself. That's what people love about comedians. So you're able to take a time where we're just so politically divided, and then you looked at Dave Chappelle, where it's like he's going to take the Juicy Smollett situation. Like, here's how I can very French actor, and he can make something that is so gets people so riled up and laugh about it. And then too, it's like I'm going to make fun of myself. I'm going to talk about Christians.
I'll make fun of all of these things.
Oh yeah.
Well, cancel culture and like the Me Too movement came first and hardest and only for comedians.
Yeah.
Comedians.
Yeah, why was that?
Because comedians will tell you the truth in a way that it exposes you, and the first video ever made was called Christian Girl Instagram. It's about girls that post a photo of their Bible with like a fruit cup and like coffee with like flower petals and like their promise ring.
There. Yeah.
And I made that joke. If you are a Christian that does that, that is so offensive to you.
Cringe.
Because you're not you're thinking you're doing it sincerely. And if somebody yells at you and says, quit doing this, you're angry at them. But when somebody as a comedian becomes you and you hate nothing more. You hate nothing more. And the comedians are kind of the only people that are not keeping people honest. There's other people that do it, but they go, oh my God. When a comedian makes fun of the Jussie Smollett thing, it's just...
it's hilarious.
But people angry at him, it doesn't carry the same as like people that are making... It goes so into you, like your soul that you're like, God, if it's done right, if it's done correctly.
Oh yeah.
A lot of comics, I would say, but I made the joke about everybody on unemployment, like guy on unemployment.
Right.
And I was like, if you're like trashing on unemployment, you're angry at that. But I was like, I'm going to become the guy on unemployment and expose how silly this is. And people hate that.
Do you have sports fans that are mad at you, or people at ESPN?
Tons.
You had that one like outside a minor league baseball stadium.
Yeah.
It's like just woke sports. We're
Just
like,
gro-
hey,
yeah,
we
yeah,
are
yeah,
going to
yeah,
shove identity politics down your throat.
Let's talk to
things that
Megan
have
Rapinoe.
nothing to do with the game.
No.
And then you just did the church transfer portal.
Yeah.
That was really creative.
No, Alex, do you consume my content? I don't think you do.
I do too.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do watch everything. And John was telling, John didn't show me that part. He explained it a little bit because I don't know sports, but I thought that was creative.
Yeah. I like this. Look at him. He's out there.
I know we both love the Omicron reporter.
Oh yeah.
That was super funny. And I said, did he get a warning label from Instagram put on, and you didn't?
Yeah. I didn't. I don't think I did.
Which was shocking to me.
I don't know. But that video was like huge.
Yeah.
You got people on the inside or something?
No, I wish. No, trust me, I don't. I wish I did. But that video is only like, people are like, how do these comedians get to say whatever they want? It's literally the opposite. We can only say, none of us is big enough to make something go viral. We rely on people to be like, this is true, and then send it out.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, the comedian gets to bash whoever. We don't. Because if it's not true, it's not going anywhere. But if everybody feels the same about, how do you pronounce it? Omicron?
Yeah.
Omicron.
Yeah. If
people,
it
is an Omicron.
Yeah. Hey, let's
Very
go.
nice. There we go.
Still got it. Alex still got it. But if you say a thing that everyone else is like, thank you, then it goes. So if you, like, there's a lot of stereotypes that it wouldn't be, like, what's the deal with all the German people in Phoenix?
Right.
Does that make sense? That video doesn't go anywhere because it's not true. When you're like, I'm out in front of the Omicron and like Christmas is canceled, say goodbye to your loved ones. Everybody's like, oh my God.
It resonates. Okay, so do you know, speaking of that, like saying something that is true that just resonates with everybody, do you follow or watch Tim Dillon at all?
Yes.
Okay, so he's
big fan.
I'm a huge fan too.
Yeah.
And after January 6th, he made that hilarious video pretending to be the shaman, the QAnon shaman.
The Buffalo Man?
Yes.
Best.
And he was like, I'm an actor, I'm trying to make it.
Good.
And like the whole thing was so good. And you're right. And that blew up because, and he made that like 2 days after January 6th.
Because it's true.
Yes.
And you get like, there's like, now you can't really, a lot of these comics are free to be truthful because you can't cancel them. Because back in the day, if you had a HBO special or a sitcom or you could cancel them from that. But now everybody has their own, you can't cancel Joe Rogan. Because he's not, cancel him from what?
Right.
Like when I got my Netflix special got canceled.
Right.
You can cancel me from that, but you can't. All my shows are still sold out.
What's the tea on coming up in 2022? I mean, have you
With
done
me?
your due diligence yet? Apologizing and kissing all the hands.
There's a lot
that you
more.
needed to kiss?
No, I don't think I ever apologized. But
Well,
yeah.
I mean, with Netflix.
I just said, hey, yeah.
Do you
with
think
them,
Netflix will give you another shot at doing a special?
That I can't. Well, I can't legally discuss.
Okay.
But is that
All
fair
right.
to say?
That's fair to say.
Not gonna get that tea.
That's a little conservative. I mean,
no,
it's a little
but,
conservative without being conservative.
Is that what it's called? Conservative?
That's what I say.
Oh.
That's what the conservatives say.
Wait,
John.
are you not
There's
consuming
one
her
that-
content?
No, I am. Conservative. I like that.
Yeah.
That's how you start. This
Okay.
is a conservative.
So yeah, because you were doing a bunch of churches on your
Yeah,
tours.
yep.
Now you're
That's
not.
when you came to my show. That's when we became friends.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did I
came
come
to
on
your
your show? I didn't
No.
come on the radio.
I don't think you ever did when I was in radio. I know we should do the spillover.
Why didn't you invite me on the radio?
I don't know why we didn't do
I don't
that.
remember either.
But no, we didn't do
I'm
that.
so happy to be in between you two
Yeah.
during this discussion here.
We went
Why
on-
did this
yeah.
happen? Did you watch
But
my
now we're
stuff?
doing this.
We went to
with
brunch.
you.
We went on a date.
We did, yes.
We did.
And this was like 20.
Don't try to talk it down like it wasn't a big deal.
I know.
I already know what you're doing.
We
It's already
shared
hurtful.
cinnamon sugar
Okay.
toast together. But
Here,
it was
let me sit.
2018.
Let me
It
sit.
wasn't recent.
What year was it?
2018.
Yeah. How did this go down? Let me ask you.
No, don't point at me. Do not point at me. We don't have to get
Wait,
into
was
this.
it a slide into the DM where it's like,
Well-
oh, conservative girls are hot? There's one. Let me
Yes,
slide.
I was like, this is unique.
I
But you-
responded something funny because I'm actually funny.
Still got
and
it.
so I slid into his DMs. I just had responded to something that he had put on his story. I don't remember what, but I
Yeah,
said
you weren't
something
trying
funny.
to be like, what's up? You're just like, this is funny.
Yeah, and I had a
That's
joke
fair.
to say about something he had posted, and so John responded, and you literally said, you're like, okay, this is actually funny.
What you said.
Yeah, and then
It was somebody from my team, I think, because they go through and they're like, encourage people to DM. I think.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't me. It was just
Right, so anyway.
And then we were like, then we started chatting, and they were like, you're from India, and I was like, I'm coming there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Should we go back and look at them?
Oh
No,
my! if
God.
you-
No.
No, they don't say
I
anything
don't think I
bad.
have them. I don't think I would have
They're-
them.
They don't say anything
we
bad.
have to.
No,
check.
we're not doing that. But no, that's the point. We went to brunch.
Yeah, so we went to brunch and
And what's the place called?
Hatachu in Indianapolis,
It was
Indiana.
downtown Indianapolis. I had like a
Hatachu.
yeah.
Yep.
All I
That
remember
sounds
was
like
the
a
cinnamon toast. That's
Sounds
all I
like a
remember.
Pokemon.
Yeah, it does. It's
Very
actually a
innocuous
very
brunch.
famous brunch place.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
we
what
go way
happened?
back.
Okay, like what happened? What did you talk about? How'd you start?
What
Were
did-
you
I don't
nervous?
remember.
You had to like palms were
Well, that's the
sweaty.
first time
or-
we ever met.
Yeah,
Right
that was
there,
the
right?
first time we ever met. We went to brunch, and then we talked for a few months. We went out a couple times. Every time you came back to Indy, we would kind of go
No,
out.
I don't remember that part.
Yes. And
pleading the fifth for the rest.
And then
of
we.
this.
and then John said, "I'm not looking for anything serious."
That's not true.
That is true.
No, that's not true.
This is an unbelievable.
You brought
place to
it
be
up.
right
No,
now.
I was bringing up the brunch. I didn't bring up the rest.
Oh, okay. And then
I'm
that's
dead.
it. But
So,
we've always been
Did
cool.
you guys have like cinnamon rolls? Like
We
that would
did.
be very
yeah,
on
we always
brand.
been cool.
No, we just did the cinnamon toast.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
Yep.
then I got canceled.
And then he got canceled,
Yeah, so
and then I was
then-
like, "Oh
then you were
my
like,
gosh, I
all right.
know him."
And then I was like, you were like R.I.P.
No,
And
I
then
sent you a very nice
You
text.
did. You
Replied
did,
to
very
another
sweet.
story.
You were never canceled to
What else?
me.
Yeah, love you, girl.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, like
Yeah.
we always stayed friends. We always stayed cool, and I was.
But I think I was it either when I came back. When did you cover me publicly?
I think
on your
when it
show.
all first came out,
No,
I mean,
no, I don't think so. It was on when I came because I didn't have social media at the time.
it was whenever you
I
posted
came
your
back.
like apology video.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
came
It
back and
wasn't an
announced.
apology. but
I
yeah,
mean, you were just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, I did some things I'm not proud of, but I'm back, baby."
didn't say
Anyway,
that.
chicks DM me. No, you didn't say that. But like, so I had to.
butchering the-
My show covers pop culture. I have to cover it. Like it's a big pop culture moment.
And you remember what I said to you?
You said I really appreciate it. That was a fair way to cover it.
I said that seems fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't like taking a side. You're just saying this is a thing that happened.
I said, "Get your pitchforks. We're
Yeah.
going to John Chris' house."
Also, I went to brunch with him. He's
Also,
cool.
I went to brunch with him.
Yeah.
He told me he wasn't looking for anything serious.
That's not true.
Is this
Yeah.
the first time you guys have seen each other
Yes.
since
Yes.
brunch?
It's like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I go, Alex is here. I gotta find her.
Yeah. No, this is really fun. I love
It
it.
is. Well,
This is a beautiful moment. I'm
I
so
think
glad I'm
what
here.
would-
with you.
what should if heaven forbid it if you ever got canceled, I got your back.
Thank
because
you.
of what you did to me.
See, and that's the whole point of like making friends within the conservative movement and stuff. That is
Yeah.
really, people are always scared about that. And I say,
Yeah.
well, once you go to Turning
got
Point
your
events,
back. Yeah,
you go to
yeah.
AmericaFest, you meet people that give you a shoulder to lean on, and you have people so that if that stuff happens
when you sign up, there was like a bunch of like, all these speakers are going to be happening, these concerts. They should put that in there. conservatives are going to get your back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the benefit of coming.
That's good. I think that's a good little advertising.
I'll be like, hey, listen, you guys, I know Alex. I know what you guys are saying seems out of character.
And it's true.
It might be true. But I don't think anyone ever, that's not what anyone was ever like arguing, especially about me. No one was saying these things are and aren't true. They go, yeah, but you can't, he doesn't deserve to not work anymore. That's what that's what the premise was. Not like these things aren't true. It's like, yeah, this seems unfair.
Right.
Or like, what do you like? I always say like, the pastor of the church probably can't be like going out with women and drinking. But like, what about the landscaper? What is he allowed to do?
Is that what you are?
Well, I go, I'm
if he's not a part of the elder board,
he's somewhere in there. What is he like? What about the a member of the Greek team? Can they like get drunk on Saturday night? Where no one really knows.
We need to have a full sit down for this.
All right, the pastor. If the pastor is married, he can't be going out to bars. The youth pastor,
tell Hillsong that.
He could probably have a beer at Chili's.
A beer at Chili's.
Right?
I think a beer, yes.
Then the volunteer at the church, but he's still a leader. What about the announcement guy? What is he allowed to do?
Oh, well, he's front facing.
The guy that collects ties.
You know that guy. That's
can,
Ben, the announcement guy.
He can go out, but he has to be in a committed relationship. Yeah. But he also can't live with his girlfriend.
True.
But then the guy that cuts the grass at the church.
There's lots of nuance.
That's what I'm saying. And when I got canceled, no one really knew what to do. Mm-hmm. They didn't know what the rule. They were like, well, I don't know. Yeah. And so now we just don't. We're like, obviously still a believer, but we just don't perform in churches.
Right.
Which that seems fair. And a lot of the criticism of me is fair. Like what you report, I got, it seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, finally, to wrap this up, it's been incredible being the third wheel here for a few minutes. Wow, I didn't expect that at all. But you have the Fresh Cuts
This
tour.
is like a show you go on publicly. You're like, we need to. I was like, hey, can we talk about this privately? Alex is like, come on the show.
We have a. We're gonna wrap it up because you got the Fresh Cuts tour.
Yeah.
Before
Alex
we
was
talk,
DMing me, can I come? And I was like, fine, I'll get you tickets.
I actually got another pretty funny thing to say.
Yeah.
So. Fresh Cuts tour. Before we get into that, when are you bringing the Fresh Cut back? When is the Amish John Crist?
I came in here.
I cannot believe you
everybody
did that
wants
and kept it for as long as you did.
People were like, "Where is the bowl cut?" I got to bring it back.
No,
dude, it was so. Whenever I would go out to like bars and stuff, men, like male, like dudes would, because I had like the Amish, like
I was gonna say the Mennonites probably were like, brother.
No, God, yeah,
brother. Is that what they said?
One of us. One of us.
Guys, like other guys were like, dude, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the sickest haircut ever.
But every woman was like, I cannot look at you. Like, it's too much.
Yeah.
And that was tough. Dating, I had a little bit of a dry spell when I had the bowl cut, but I'll bring it back. Dude.
Also, I love a live show. Everybody's like saying hello. It's great to see you. Good luck. Have fun. But finally, wrap it up.
The lights and the cameras, like, I'll get
wrap it up. What are you talking about at Fresh Cuts? Like, what do people look forward to? Like, what do you cover?
You talk about being canceled?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Good.
The good thing about being canceled is that now you're free.
That's a really
Because you're
good point.
scared of
unleashed.
The only thing worse than what happened to me, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, it was horrific and awful, but the only thing worse is if that would have never happened. Because I know a lot of people, public figures, that live in, like, just gripped by
waiting for the.
They're like, man, in 2015, I got drunk and a girl came. I'm like, if she ever, and just paralyzing.
Right.
And now it's like, you're like, oh. Like everybody's like, it must have been tough to sleep that night. I go, nah, dude, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life. Because it's like, oh, now I'm free.
Okay,
now.
so you talk about that, and what else?
I mean, it's not the whole show. It's like, I talk about that with my therapist, but I go, yeah. I mean,
is that the whole show? You have your therapist out there?
There's
just
a lot.
Like laying down
Just
on a couch?
the premise of the show is like, we're all trying to be good, like, progressive, like, understanding people. But inside, we all still have that group text with our buddies. Like, come on.
Man, it's fantasy football chats.
Come on. Like, everybody, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, I do a joke about everybody's like, men and women basketball players need to be paid the same. Publicly, we're all like, yes, equality. But then privately, somebody's like, you want to go to a WNBA game? You're like, no.
Did you
like,
see the parade for the WNBA championship? I was covering that on my show, and I was like, all right, These women are fantastic.
I don't think, is that true?
Oh no, literally, no one showed up in Chicago.
I don't think that's real. I
was,
saw the video.
It was 100% real.
What?
It was,
I did not
nobody
hear
showed
about
up to
that.
the parade. And it's like, we're not taking away from their athleticism or athletic
yeah,
ability. They're
yeah.
incredible.
I'd go to a game. I'd go to a game.
Like, I could probably barely score 2 points against
100%,
those women,
we're not-
but still,
yeah,
it's just
way
like,
better than
it's not popular. People
It's
don't
not
show up to a
popular.
championship
Yeah,
parade,
yeah.
and then there's no way you're going to compete against men.
And what's great about comedy these days is comedy is most strongest when the world is kind of upside down. Unfortunately, when things are going well, comedy, when things are like when everybody's like, all right, so I got to walk into this restaurant and wear a mask, but then when I sit down, I take it off. Normal people go, this is not, and they go, I need the comedian to articulate this in a way that helps me cope because this is insanity.
I need the comedian to tell me we need restaurant tables inside of classrooms, so it seems like you can take your mask off.
Because
then.
you you watch a commercial for like a prescription, and you're like it's gonna fix your whatever, but then all these side effects, and you go. But a comedian knows how to
Is this actually going to help me?
Yeah, you think that I just verbalized everything that everybody's been thinking over the last 18 months, 2 years, and it's unbelievable.
Well, we need more comedy. We need to laugh more, and then the left they provide a lot of quality content. It's making your job easy.
It's not hard. A comedian in 2021 is
a
not
rich
hard.
man.
Yeah.
But definitely thanks for stopping by. If you haven't gotten tickets to the Fresh Cuts tour, I don't know what you're doing.
I
Check
think we're
this
coming
guy
to
out.
35 cities, red states only. It's a joke. Okay. I like how you guys didn't laugh at that. You're like, okay.
I was like, cool. Serves them right.
Sounds good to me. It's a good business strategy, I think. But
And
thanks for being here.
what terms are we leaving on?
Oh, I think we're leaving on good terms.
You think we settled it?
We have to go out for another slice of cinnamon toast at some point, I think, as
Wait, where do
friends.
you live here now? You live here?
I live here. I live in Scottsdale.
Look at his so
This is can I please third wheel for the
I'm
stage?
uncomfortable too.
I'm invited by
Cinnamon toast for all.
I'll sit at that
We'll
like that
discuss
solo
it. We'll
table where
discuss
it
it
looks like I
live.
got stood up or something. I'll just be
Yeah.
right by you guys.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Can I chime in on this conversation? But
All right, we're
you're the
taking
man.
it to the next level.
So glad that you
You guys are
guys
the best.
got together.
Thank
What
you,
a
me
beautiful
too.
experience.
Look at
Thanks,
this.
thanks for having me here. Thanks, John. All right. Well, I tell you what, that was not what I expected. You gave me a little bit of a warning, both you and John, when I sat on that couch, but that got so wild and funny.
Yeah, oh my gosh. He honestly is the best. He's the best guy and super cool. I love that he was willing to come out to AmericaFest. He had a great time, and it was fun seeing him kind of clown on everybody.
I love how he was talking about just the dude-servatives,
Oh, yeah.
what they're looking for in a conservative lady. That was so funny. But hey, we're going to head to commercial break. We got some more right after this. See you soon.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We've been showing you some exclusive interviews from AmericaFest 2021. Once again, I'm Jon Root. This is Alex Clark.
Hello.
Next, we're sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend, the reason Turning Point USA is around, Charlie Kirk. It's a great conversation about AmericaFest, what this means not just for Charlie, for Turning Point USA, but America and the culture war in general.
Amazing. Yeah, we actually Turning Point started in a garage, and then we went to a 10,000 person event. So that's pretty insane.
Yeah, the way Charlie breaks this down, you can really hear his heart behind this and why this means so much. Enjoy this interview with Charlie Kirk. Hey everyone, welcome back to AmericaFest 2021. We've had some incredible interviews, but this is probably going to be the best. We got the man who made sure that AmericaFest happened. Charlie Kirk, welcome.
Doing a great job, John. Been watching from afar. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Well, tell us about when you initially went out on stage. Honestly, I feel like I still have goosebumps. We haven't seen anything like this in the conservative movement.
I'm a little upset at the events team, okay? Because they never tell me all the surprises they have in store, okay? And they always add something. So I come out on stage, and I knew about the Twizzlers or whatever, you know, the things, and then the confetti, and then it's the smoke, and then it's the fire, and then it's the jet flying over. Now I'm half kidding about that one, but the funny thing is, if you go back through the years of all my intros, I'm always surprised because they never briefed me correctly. But I was blown away. You see that room; it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and every seat was filled, and the energy and the enthusiasm. It was really something special.
And I know someone like you've had this vision for a long time, and it feels like every single year Turning Point events get bigger and bigger and bigger. But do you feel like this is just always exceeding people's expectations?
Yeah.
I'm sure
including my own. Yeah, I mean, it's going to just get bigger. This is just the very beginning. I don't even think we're half the size of where this thing will be. We're going to have the largest Christian music festival next year because we're seeing that with the country music. It's amazing.
We need some more Jesus.
And so I totally agree. So we want to have one whole day where we have the morning and the evening for Christian music. I think it's going to be incredible. I think that we can fit at least another 10,000 seats, if we build it out differently. But that's how we have to think. And that's what we want for our country, right? Our country is really not going in the right direction. But I just want to thank our team. They've been getting here early. They've been doing a great job. It's really been extraordinary. And you know this, John. This is only a small part of what we do at Turning Point USA. From the high schools to the colleges to on campus to live to productions to Campus Victory Project. It's really special.
And this is the cool kids club. This is a cool kids party. And you were saying that initially, where the left always wants to tell you like, oh no, you're just conspiracy theorists or you're just a few people that think this way. This place is packed, Charlie.
That's right.
There's 10,000 people here. And
easily.
Easily 10,000 people here. And then you got thousands of people tuning in online. They're realizing I'm revitalized. I feel patriotic again.
Millions. I mean, you look at the YouTube, we have millions and millions of views already of just some of the speeches. And look, we're seeing some great momentum. And this conference is about fundamental American issues, about education, about cultural issues. And I've been really honored to play a part in that.
And I think a part of your vision, too, is you're always talking about, let's fight the culture war. Let's give people the resources, the tools. And how do we do that? Because sometimes people go to an event and they're like, I'm really not that political, but politics isn't everything. You come to an event like this, we got country music stars, some of the biggest in the movement. We're going to have like dance culture. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about
you saw James O'Keefe. It was like some sort of Broadway music.
It was wild. But it's a different art form that we're connecting with people that they're like, wow, like.
Yes, well, and look, we as conservatives need to be more than just the people with like tax cut policy. And that's fine. I think that's terrific, whatever. But I think also what's important is, why do we love our country? What are we doing in the cultural space? What are we doing to celebrate our country, right? And the country music stars have been amazing. The feedback has been over the top. And we have some very big guests coming later. Can't say who. Very, very big guests. And going to make some very big headlines. And so, but yeah, it's a mixture because we as conservatives must understand it's a temperament, it's a worldview, but now we are tasked with saving the country. The other side hates the country. We know that. They burn the flag, they take down the statues. We're here to protect it.
What do you want people to take away from a conference like this? Because obviously people feel patriotic, they feel re-energized, they feel like they got the tools once again, but what people are going to an event like this throughout the entire weekend, what do you want them to take away specifically?
I want them to be challenged, right? I want them to hear something that might make them want to do more, start a group, start a chapter, educate their kids differently, challenge one of their teachers, maybe homeschool their kids. I want to challenge people towards improvement. I want to motivate them towards something better. And I got to tell you, I think we're achieving that.
Your best moment so far? I'm sure it's tough to try to break it down. I know it's always the tough question.
The intro was great.
Yeah.
My favorite moment, I got to tell you, just seeing the backstage operation, seeing all of this, my favorite moment, because I happen to be CEO, so I have to worry about, like, I don't just get to come and enjoy it.
Yep.
I have to also kind of critique it.
Yeah.
I've been blown away. It's like I turn around to like see if what I said in a meeting 3 weeks ago actually happened,
Yep.
and it did. And then like from the booths, and you have to understand, and everyone watching at home, is that it's so sophisticated, from the check-in to the advancement team to handling our sponsors to this whole set to the Instagram to the Twitter to the speaker check-in. I mean, you're talking about like 10 or 12 different groups and teams of people that are working simultaneously. That for me has been the highlight. Because it's a machine, and I didn't build it. I'm able to see it happen.
That's why I feel like people resonate with you, Charlie, because it's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's about the movement, and everybody plays an essential role.
Yes.
You don't have to have millions of followers in order to make a difference. You can make a difference just in your family, or
That's
just
right.
at your school, or just at your workplace. And I feel like with this, they've done an incredible job.
All about the
events team,
movement. Amen.
It's been amazing, but congratulations
Thank you.
once again. This
and you
has
have a
been
big
awesome.
panel coming up. It's going to be great. People
I
are really
can't wait.
excited about it.
Very excited.
Good.
Thanks, Charlie.
Just like we were saying earlier, Charlie Kirk, this whole moment and weekend and experience meant so much to him, and obviously he just gave so much love to everybody that put the event on too. And once again, thank you to everybody that came to that event, tuned into the event, because it's going to be bigger and badder next year. It's only going to get better, but this is so exciting for all of Turning Point USA.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up next, we have a brand new episode of The Spillover with Raelynn, and we get into the behind the scenes of country Nashville and the country music industry.
Yeehaw. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon.
How much does the earth cost? I'm gonna buy the entire earth.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Very special episode. We're sitting down with my friend, the illustrious journalist, the muckraker, the American dissident, none other than James O'Keefe himself. James, welcome back to the show.
Good to see you, Jack.
You've been on quite a tear lately. You just announced new news. You're bringing on a 25-year CNN executive, essentially, to come in to be part of Project Veritas. You've just exposed the FDA. And I want to get into those, but I also want to say that there's something that's just happened very recently that you played a huge role in. I don't really think that a lot of people are realizing and giving Project Veritas the credit where it's due. And not because you were trying to do this, but just because you were doing your job and telling the truth, the downfall of Jeff Zucker.
Right.
The way that the bottom completely fell out on him. You know, this was a death of 1,000 cuts, of his own doing.
Yeah.
But it took the exposing of the truth and the exposing of his misdeeds by organizations like yourselves and like the brave whistleblowers who came forward there to tell the truth. What do you think really went down with Jeff Zucker?
Well, first of all, Patrick Davis, he's off camera, but he's standing 5 feet away from me, 25-year veteran of CNN. We announced here at CPAC that we're hiring him as our top producer. And he's been with us for 3 to 4 months and produced the DARPA story, produced the Rick Salibi story. Nobody knew that.
Yeah.
Zucker has left CNN, and now the company is rudderless. Because, and then Patrick has said this too, it's not that Zucker was a bad leader. You can be a good leader in the authoritarian sense, like he was every day giving directives, and all of the talent loyal to Jeff Zucker.
Okay.
But now that you've taken their God away, what do they actually believe in? Because it's not telling the news. And then there was a scandal that came out recently about Andrew Cuomo, and this is reported in the New York Times and Megyn Kelly and other people, Wall Street Journal, that they were timing their news with Andrew Cuomo's press conferences. It's so unethical. Everything they accuse you of and me of, they were doing themselves. Of course, that's what they do. They accuse their enemy of that which they are guilty of. So what the extraordinary thing I learned from talking to Patrick, who was caught on a covert recording by Kerry Porch in 2019, and he said, all we got to do is tell the news. Put a guy at the desk and tell the news. Like the 1991 Gulf War coverage. It was no-name people doing extraordinary journalism.
And this was the Ted Turner original vision for 24/7 news. It really was the first to market in terms of this model of a 24/7 network that was totally dedicated to news. And as you say, it was that Gulf War coverage that really put them in the front seat to say, look, we can cover this like a car chase, but we can be here all day, every day.
And that was a beautiful, amazing vision that Ted Turner came up with, in early 1980s. The Gulf War coverage, and then in '96 Fox came about, and MSNBC, and then it became a struggle for appointment viewership, and CNN had like 16 talent on a oval desk. It was overkill. There was no journalism. So it was the opposite. It was anathema to Ted Turner's vision. So Patrick Davis says these things. He did not know that he was being recorded in 2019. We did 12 or so stories about CNN over the last decade, and like you say, paper cuts to Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker's strategy was always Voldemort. Do not utter the words Project Veritas, make it go away. That's what Zucker told his staff.
I remember you actually mentioned this to me once, that if you go on CNN.com and you run a search for your name or Project Veritas or a few of these other terms, and it's nowhere to be found.
So Zucker's strategy was, yes, always say nothing. Now,
not even an attack.
But that might seem like a good strategy. Right. However, when it comes to some things, that can actually be a bad strategy. You're in the Navy. I mean, you can't have a universal rule like that. Never utter a word about anything. So we go, and then in December we exposed Rick Salibi, who is a guy, Jake Tapper's producer, and you cover this. Thank you, by the way, for your reporting on this.
That was the last time you were here. That's exactly.
And I would say you were the #1 journalist in America, maybe the only journalist in America who covered that story. And as a result of that, Jack, Rick Salibi left CNN. In fact, we later learned that Rick Salibi left the same day we launched the story, but CNN didn't utter a word about it.
Funny how that works.
A couple weeks later.
Same strategy. Voldemort
Same strategy. Matt
Voldemort.
Dornick, that's CNN's one of their vice presidents.
He's the VP of Communications.
VP of Communications, replies to a tweet, like a no, with 3 likes on it, and says, oh, this is old news, he left a long time ago.
Right.
What an interesting manipulative strategy. He left directly because of what we exposed, and they made it seem like an anticlimax weeks later. So this was Jeff's strategy, but the problem with that strategy, says Patrick Davis, is when a guy is soliciting pictures of an underage girl, you say something. If you're a newsman, you condemn it. You don't just ignore it. That's immoral. So eventually this bit Jeff Zucker in the ass on all fronts.
Well, I think also the issue for him was it's not 1991 anymore. And you can't keep thinking it is. CNN is not the only source of news. We have the decentralization of information now, the democratization of information, if you want to talk about that, right? Protect democracy, isn't that the big thing lately? So we have social media, we have outlets like this, we have outlets like yourselves, your own social media, which is why they try to clamp you down, ban you on Twitter, etc., smear you in Wikipedia and all the rest. So you have all of these other outlets now by which people can turn to and say, look, I might not be a fan of James O'Keefe or Jack Posobiec or Tucker, whoever it is, right? But they're saying this, and they've got receipts to back it up. And now I just heard that because, this is the way news works now. News is everywhere. News is your alerts on your phone. News is you're getting texted from your family members, your peers, your coworkers. And so the Voldemort strategy used to work, which might work if you lived in like Russia,
Right.
or China right now. It fundamentally doesn't work here.
Right, it doesn't, and I think you are seeing the democratization of tech, but the challenge for truth tellers is that CNN, the New York Times, and these oligarchy of media have a partnership with tech, and that does allow them to inject their poison and their narrative into the minds of unwitting Americans. Because there still are a percentage of, I think that percentage is shrinking. There still is, I don't know what the numbers are, 10, 20, 30, 40% of the American people who believe what they see in the chyrons on CNN. And Patrick, what I learned in the last couple weeks interviewing Patrick was that he told me that when Sam Feist, the CNN bureau chief, still works at CNN, brought Patrick in usually they do like a Soviet-style recanting. You must take your statements away. You didn't mean what you said into the camera. Patrick refused. He said, no, I stand by what I said. And in that room, let's say there was 30 to 50 people, people applauded him at CNN. What that tells you is that half, maybe even a little more than the majority of people, are actually decent people like you or anyone else here, but they're too afraid to say what he said. And that's really where we are in this country, is this fear, this concern about losing your, I don't know, pension, job, mortgage. And I think you saw it in Canada last month since I saw you. I saw Canadians on the street in Ottawa saying, I think there was one guy who said, I'll give up my life. That was an extraordinary, I don't know if you saw that powerful clip. This is a Canadian man. Right. These are not even American. You almost see like a rugged individualist thing to say. But they got pushed all the way past the brink. And maybe that's going to happen here. I hope it doesn't. If it does, people will be pushed and they'll push back. That's what's going to happen in society. And it's happening with people like Patrick Davis at CNN.
I think, and I've talked to people at NBC behind the scenes, I've talked to people also at CNN, people at some of these places where it's like they join up and they're working there because they believe in the stated vision and purpose and goals of the mission. And then it's usually a couple of years in, once they've started to become vested, once they've started to build up their resume there, they realize where they are and they realize what's going on around them. And at that point, it really does come down to one of those questions of, okay, can I continue doing this? What's my bottom line look like? Or can I get out and I go do something else with it? And I think that because of what you're doing, and because of the work you're doing, it's starting to give people the realization that they can come out, they can speak the truth, and that they will be taken care of. The door, and so once you open that door once, the door actually gets wider.
Yeah,
it actually is a situation where you're going to have a follow-on effect. It's not like one by one.
Courage is contagious.
Right.
I can't philosophize courage. I can't persuade you to be courageous. The only way I've found that you can get people to do it is when they see someone else do it. And then they watch from the sideline and say, what's going to happen to this person? Oh, this person survived. Oh, well, maybe I can do this. And what's the definition of survival? I mean, is it making money? I think people just place more of a primary value these days on their conscience than they did a decade ago. I see it happening everywhere. And a lot of the comments I get from a crowd, like I'm at CPAC here, I would say the majority of comments from people are kind of like, well, nothing ever happens to these people. Your work doesn't matter. And I'm sure you get this. No one's going to be prosecuted. Like this cynicism. And I say, well, with that attitude, nothing will happen because you'll manifest that. But inside of each and every one of us is this seed of courage, is this American ideals, right? The e pluribus unum and equality before the law and the First Amendment. These are beautiful, incredibly timeless things. And that exists in all of us. And you can choose to believe that nothing matters, or you can tap into that thing inside of you and do something. A lot of people want to complain. Well, let me find the people who are willing to do something. And I think you're right. You've talked to sources inside of all these groups. I do too. They're on the brink. They're ready and willing to go forward and publish something about what's going on.
They want to see that. Well, to your point, right? I mean, people have different motivations for why they do what they do, but I do think you're also right in the sense that for someone to be motivated to become a whistleblower, it does also, one of the biggest motivations is that something will come of it, that it will have an effect, that, okay, they're making a great risk to their personal security, their personal financial status, right, their economic well-being, if they have children, if they have a family, etc. But at the same time, they want to know it's going to be worth it. Is the risk worth the reward? And so will there be a reward? And so when I look at the downfall of Jeff Zucker, I can't help but think that is tied to all of his actions that were exposed by Project Veritas, by the whistleblowers, by this entire movement that's come forward to simply tell the truth. To tell the truth about what's going on behind the scenes. We could see what they do on air, right? And we can see the malfeasance. But once you understand the way that place operates and the way it is behind the scenes and the fact that there are good people that would like to see it righted, wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually had a truth-telling news network in the United States?
And actually, two hopeful notes. How cool would it be if CNN does go back to doing it? And that's possible. Imagine CNN airing our stories at Project, airing your stories. Hey, that's possible. I think the talent, based upon what I've heard, the talent is the problem. I mean, the talent. Everyone. It's almost. I'm making a generalization. I think it's a safe generalization to report because it's what I've been told by people inside the network. I think it's almost like everyone else is good except the talent. I mean, you have people behind the scenes all saying the same things, but there is a information is accountability. Information is the accountability that people seek because it's either that, it's either you persuade by informing people and by educating them, or you persuade through violence. I don't believe in violence, but I think a lot of people want coercion. They want arrest them. Well, unless you get half your countrymen or 60% or whatever the numbers are to agree with you, the only way you're going to accomplish that objective is through violence. And we're not there yet. We don't want to be there. So
no, again,
the mission,
not Russia, not China.
The mission is
still
education.
America.
We
Yes.
have to form consensus. It's a hard mission, but it's the only way forward. And I believe we actually have the majority of people who do agree with us. It's just not, you don't see that by watching cable news.
Well, you've got to figure out, at the same time, people have to look at this and say, it's kind of like, when I was in the Navy, when you're turning an aircraft carrier, right? Those things don't turn on a dime, right? It's little incremental movements, and then but then eventually, once you realize that a new course has been charted, you are stuck on that course, and you're stuck there for a long time.
I think it's also
like that.
eternal vigilance. Benjamin Franklin said, "This is all an American muckraker." This book I wrote. Newspapers are more important than government. Abraham Lincoln, public opinion is everything. These are things that are so self-evident, it's like common sense. But we forget that, I just did a panel on Andrew Breitbart. He said politics is downstream from culture. You've heard that a million times. And culture is downstream from information. And we have an oligarchy. It's getting worse, Jack. I'm not even on Twitter, haven't been for a year. Instagram does not allow you to tag me, which is its own sort of badge of honor. But where is this headed? And I worry because, God, there's so many Truth Social and Parler and this thing. I can't keep track of all these new mediums. But the problem is, do you want to preach to the choir? Do you want to only speak things to people who agree with you? So I warn people not to only use those media.
Right. My take on that is twofold, right? So people will ask me, they say, Jack, why don't you get off of Twitter completely? Why don't you voluntarily take yourself off and only use those platforms? And I have a maximalist approach here. I say, look, I'm going to use Getter and Truth and Rumble and Parler and everything else that comes out. And I want those things to exist. You know why? Because you need lifeboats. You need a place where you can be safe. You need safe houses, right?
What leads someone to say to you, don't tell the truth on Twitter? That's a logic.
But the other thing that I look at this is that I say I am not going to leave the field of battle because the battlefield is dangerous.
Why would people want you? That's like saying, don't speak the truth out there in the street. Only whisper in your bedroom what the truth is.
Right. This is the public square. We're going to go to the public square.
And I see it on the right. And I'm going to call that out because I don't understand that. Andrew Breitbart, again, he died 10 years ago Tuesday. He was a mentor of mine and someone I really respected. He was all about getting in the mainstream media. And this is before Instagram. So Walter Cronkite, if you go back to the 80s, go back to the 70s, there were Walter Cronkite. You got to get covered by the mainstream media.
You do have these silos, right? You have these multiple silos around. But by using multiple social medias or going to different media outlets like
using
that,
them. I just don't support limiting yourself.
Right, that's how you cross over. So if you can cross over, and if you can get past, and even for Project Veritas, when I think every single one of your last few videos, whether it be the two-part FDA story, exposing the FDA on vaccines and the effectiveness, and what their plans are for the rollouts, or even just anything that you put out has been taken down by Twitter within usually about 12 hours. I know they usually come out around 8 p.m., and then I'll tweet it out, and then by the next morning it's down. So what I've gotten the habit now of doing is saving it, so I make sure I've got other ways to do it. But that being said,
whatever the person, and there's a million even people watching
the story is still there.
I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, half people think, why would you put your stuff on Twitter? That mentality is what I'm fighting against.
Yes.
The mentality that we're not supposed to tell the truth to people who disagree with us. It's a weird zero-sum mentality. It's a Manichaean mentality Veritas's mission is revelation. It's revealing what's going on. It's exposing the truth. And I grant you that I want to be on all of these things. I'm on Truth Social. I think we're getting set up today here. Instagram. But we have to distribute. We have to be covered by the mainstream media.
Distribution is power when it comes to information.
Yes.
Distribution. And the more you can get out, and whether you have to have anonymous accounts in order to get it out, or if somebody asked me once, they said, what would you do if they shut you down on everything? And ham radio.
Exactly.
Right? You know,
exactly.
I'll get my ham radio, and
Precisely.
I'll set up, and the biggest generator I can find.
There was a moment in the beginning of my career,
all the rest of it.
In the very early part of, I was in jail. I was being attacked in a horrible way, and I was at the lowest point someone can be, and I said, well, what do I do? My mother and sister, who are wonderful people, gave me this advice. Said, James, even if one person is going to listen to what you have to say, you tell them what is true. I mean, that's a pretty low point to be when you just said, okay, there's one person who will listen to me. Yeah. You do whatever you have to do. But I also believe if the content is good enough, like the FDA guys, shocking statements, the DARPA documents, I mean, shocking statements. Anthony Fauci mentioned us by name in that Senate hearing. I'm not even on Twitter. And the story was #1 on Twitter. So content is king, to quote the Viacom chairman, late Viacom chairman, said content is king. If the visuals are shocking enough, they'll sort of effuse their way into all the different mediums. So the real mission is to get the stuff that's really going to shock people. That's what you do very well, and what I do and what others do, and that's the mission.
But I will say this, because there's so many people and they'll say, oh, you know, he's just posting this for retweets, he's just, you know, doing this, they're just trying to make money, they're trying to do this. Look, I was just trying to make money. I can find lots of easier ways to make money.
Well, that's what all these alternative media companies are when they're monetizing, that's what they're doing. It's so funny how people will always accuse you of that which they are guilty of.
Right.
Because that's the soup they swim in. When someone makes an accusation like an ad hominem, it's always because that's what they actually think.
They're actually telling you how they think.
They're telling you how it's a psychological thing. And we're actually a philanthropic news organization. In my opinion, there's no business model for investigative reporting. You have to be like a masochist or a sociopath. You have to like pain to be an investigative reporter, because some of our stories cost $1 million to do, and we don't make a penny off of them. I don't settle lawsuits. I subject myself to discovery and litigation. I subject myself to jury trials. I'm probably one of the only men you'll ever meet, unless you were in the armed forces. So maybe you met a terrorist or a drug dealer or a sex trafficker once or twice. Terrorists. But I'm probably the only man you'll ever know who's been put in handcuffs twice by the FBI. And I'm an American journalist. That's a pretty extraordinary statement. So, no, we're not. We haven't never made money doing this. And I don't think if you're doing investigative work, investigative journalism, I don't think you can, because of how expensive the work is and how little profit there is in it. And, you know, Twitter, $1 trillion company, Google, $1 trillion company. I think I saw some stats on these new social media networks. They're making like $7 million a year. So you're not. It pales in comparison to the power
you're going up against billionaires every day.
Trillionaires,
and that's the way you have to look at it. If you don't understand that going into this, then you're not going to do well.
But there are some things more powerful than money. Like Laura Logan said this to me so poignantly. She says, James, we're nothing. I mean, I'm nothing. I don't have any political power. I don't want any political power. I don't want to be an elected representative ever. So we are nothing, but we're also not alone. I would say that so many people agree with us, even inside these institutions.
See, this is what the other side, whatever you want to call it, establishment, you know, that is one of their greatest tricks, is to make you feel isolated, atomized, individualized, that I'm the only person who thinks this way, that I'm totally alone. Look, I mean, we're here at CPAC, we were at Turning Point. Thousands and thousands of people are flocking to this now.
I mean, I was even on an airplane, the TSA guys, the Uber driver, the hairdresser, not even CPAC, because that's self-evident here, but I'm talking about the people that you would never expect.
Right.
I mean, even the people in my apartment that morning when the FBI raided me, it's hard to know body language of a Fed because they might be trying to pretend to be something, but what struck me about their body language was 4 out of 10 of those agents were almost like they were fans of mine. But they were just following orders, right? They were just following orders to, you know, my pension. Well, There are some things more important than your pension, right? And that's where we are right now. And Veritas is a breeding ground for these people, and I think you're going to see an explosion of truth tellers and whistleblowers, Jack, as people get pushed to the brink.
As we wrap things up, let us know and let everybody know, where can we follow you? What if you're able to tell us anything you're working on, and what's next on the mission plan for Veritas going into 22?
What isn't next? I mean, I think the best place to follow us is actually Telegram, because you can download the minute-long video and upload. I know you do that, like you do distribution by proxy, so we'll send you the click-to-tweet link, and it'll automatically embed the video clip into your Twitter. What's coming is a lot more. We have an election coming up in the midterms, so what we find is that politicians in swing states tend to mislead voters. They tend to lie about what they actually believe in to get elected. You'll see some of that. You'll see some inside big media corporations. We got a big one coming out soon. Just this morning, we released a video. If you have not seen it, it's a 15-minute long sort of Barbara Walters style interview with a 25-year veteran of CNN who's come to work for me. Extraordinarily powerful interview.
I mean, I love having the ability to pick the brain of someone who is in one of these machines and to understand how it works, how the gears move, what's the interplay, what are the hydraulic pressure valves, what do they care about, what's the actual, and this is something we used to talk about in the intelligence community, but strategic intent.
Yes.
Right, and that's the only thing that you can get from another human being. You can't get that from, when you're in the military and you're trying to say, are they about to invade, whoever it is. Well, you can see it from the satellites. You can see where they are. And signals, that could be disinformation, but strategic intent is what you get from human intelligence, and you can only get that from talking to trusted sources.
That is correct, and if you have not seen this 15-minute interview with Patrick Davis on YouTube, by the way, we're still on YouTube. That might surprise people. Why are you still on YouTube? Because we don't opine. Again, I don't even make claims in our reports. I just do the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why. Yep. And I'm usually quoting the authorized knowers, the FDA, Pfizer, CNN. Like, I'm never quoting a conservative. I'm quoting the New York Times, Pfizer, CNN, all these people that they tell you the experts. Right. I'm quoting the experts, the Pentagon. I think they're probably afraid that I'm going to sue them and win because we haven't lost a lawsuit. So I think there's some fear. I think they're more afraid, Jack, of us than we are afraid of them. I think that's actually a true statement. And what they fear most is the thing about communists, and for lack of a better word, that's what I'll call this modern issue that we're facing. I think Whittaker Chambers wrote this in Witness, that the only thing that communists fear is exposure. They don't really fear government or death, but they fear sunlight. They fear being disinfected by that. So let's go out and expose what's going on. Let's get some people on the inside to be brave and do something.
You guys, welcome back to another episode of Freedom Papers, hosted by me, Morgan Zegers, your favorite little history nerd, and powered by Turning Point USA, but of course, lovely guest hosted, co-hosted by the one and only Connor Clegg. Thanks for joining.
Of course, always happy to be here.
Y'all know I just love dragging you in whenever I can get him, because I think it's just so much more fun when you're on the episode. I like the conversation of it, and I feel like then we bring in more of the current events and the topics and stuff, so I just find it interesting. You guys, we're in the series still of the failures of the Articles of Confederation, the issues of not having that strong union, but this one is specifically about Greece. We're going to go on a little trip through history. What do you think about that?
I'm ready to get greasy.
Oh my God. So you came up with that one, but for me, I'm just like, yeah, I would love to be in Greece right now. I'm like picturing myself.
Incredible.
What is it? Santorini?
Yeah, the islands of Santorini or
I love that. I love like
Mykonos.
natural whole foods and stuff, and
Yeah.
I just love the food that they serve in Greece.
beautiful
because it's
Mediterranean
amazing.
diet.
I would love to be there right now, and instead we're in 40-degree Arizona weather. Can you believe that?
It's a dry cool.
I just moved here, and I'm shocked to my core.
Shivering and
Shooketh.
shocked.
I'm shooketh. Well, either way, we're talking about Greece today, guys, because they're basically Publius goes through two examples of the first failure of what happened in the country and then the second failure, and why the second failure didn't exactly deserve failure as much as the first one, if that's a simple way of putting it, but we'll get into that. Connor, I'll just read this first part to get started, and then I want to hear your original thoughts. Or initial thoughts. I mean, you can be original or you don't have to. I won't judge you.
We'll see.
You could have gotten this from Google. I would not know. So Publius says, and again, this is just part of the same initial topic. It's called The Same Subject Continued, but this one's fun. This was written by Madison with Hamilton.
How many of those were there where they were like co-authored? Do you
Not
know?
a lot.
Yeah.
Like a small few. And so I thought that was really cool. But we'll have to see. Okay. So Publius says, among the confederacies of antiquity, the most considerable was that of the Grecian republics, associated under the Amphictyonic, you guys, you got to bear with me on this, Amphictyonic Council. From the best accounts transmitted of this celebrated institution, it bore a very instructive analogy to the present confederation of the American states. The members retained the character of independent and sovereign states and had equal votes in the federal council. This council had a general authority to propose and resolve whatever it judged necessary for the common welfare of Greece, to declare and carry on war, to decide in the last resort all controversies between the members, to fine the aggressing party, to employ the whole force of the confederacy against the disobedient, to admit new members. And that's the end of that. But basically kind of explaining the structure. And so what we were dealing with back then in the Republic of Greece, bada bing, bada boom. It's very similar to the Articles of Confederation, and, well, it didn't exactly work.
It did not work, sadly, because I think the Grecian experiment was one of the most beautiful that we've ever seen in the history of civilizations. I mean, it was a marvelous thing to witness, I'm sure, at the time. But ultimately, there was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of, it was kind of like a Tower of Babel situation where they had, and they explained this, we'll get into it, where they had all these like kind of competing forms of government within their own city-states. And an interesting fact that I remember from my time in college was that the Grecian kind of empire, if you want to call it that, but it really wasn't an empire. It was never actually like a country. Like if you think of Rome or you think of Italy or the Italian Republic, that was kind of an actual country, civilization. It was a whole thing. Greece never really attained that status. It was more of like a cultural mishmash of similarities.
That's a good way of describing it, because I felt weird calling it a country.
Because you couldn't really call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really outsized. I mean, Athens was a very small parcel of land. It wasn't huge in comparison to some of the other places that we were reading about at the time. And they were really shooting above their weight or hitting above their weight there for a while. And that ended up being kind of the downfall there, was because they couldn't consolidate enough power in a unified governmental sense to keep themselves together, right?
I love that. Well, so they just described in the beginning the basic structure of what was similar to the Articles of Confederation. It was more of a league of different little societies.
Yeah.
And so that's what we had in America at the time as we're trying to write this and get this new constitution ratified. But Publius then goes on to talk about the failures. And so he says, like many things in politics, in theory and upon paper, this apparatus of powers seems amply sufficient for all general purposes. So it seems, looks good on paper.
Yeah.
Probably would work, kind of like socialism. But I think socialism even looks bad on paper. Like, who would want
Right.
that anyways? Whatever. So it says, this concept of what Greece was at the time looks like it would make sense. You're trying to get them all to coordinate, but in reality didn't really work. And he goes on to explain why. He says, very different, nevertheless, was the experiment from the theory. The powers, like those of the present Congress, were administered by deputies appointed wholly by the cities in their political capacities, and exercised over them in the same capacities. Hence the weakness, the disorders, and finally, the destruction of the Confederacy. The more powerful members, instead of being kept in awe and subordination, tyrannized successively over all the rest. Athens, specifically, he says, was the arbiter of Greece for 73 years. And then he goes on to Lacedaemonians. Nice. Is that right, you guys?
Yeah.
Lacedaemonians then did it for 29 years, and then he says it just went downhill from there. And so it wasn't a situation of everybody being equal members of some league. Instead, it just became a point of the larger, more powerful states with more resources. They tyrannized the smaller states.
Right, as they tend to do. And we've talked about this before, but that goes back to the idea of human nature. I mean, by our virtue, we are conquerors, and larger people will always tend to abuse the smaller, if not checked by societal order and structure. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's nothing new. We've said it a million times, but it's obviously true. Yeah. And they're totally right. I mean, it sounds really good. We talked about this with Federalist 14, I think.
I know. I used to be really good at remembering which one was which topic, but now I'm like, the numbers are mixed up in my head.
I'm so bad with numbers. I do words. I don't do numbers, but I barely do words. But yeah, like democracy obviously sounds really good in theory and on paper, but then whenever you put it into practice, it becomes really dangerous. We've gone on about that forever, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me here is that we see a lot of these things in our modern society today where it's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. You know, one that pops out to me just through the age that we're living in is the lockdowns and the 15 days of slow and spread. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, we'll shut down everything for 2 weeks and see what happens. Well, that didn't go very well, did it? Right. So now we're here. Anyway, this is a tougher one. I'm gonna come out and say it because I don't know that you will, but this is a tougher one to get through, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to follow. The names and the words are really hard to even read in my head, so it's hard for me to track. Like, I like really simple words, simple language, and I like to be able to track the narrative of the story and tell history as a story, and it's hard for me to follow, but I also can get where he's going.
Yes,
and so
totally.
I totally saw the lessons. For me, I always try to relate it to what's going on in America when I'm reading and as I'm going through it. And I just specifically saw, I mean, of course, imagine if there wasn't checks on state power today, you would have terrible, large, powerful states like California and New York State that would completely tyrannize the smaller states. They want to.
Yeah.
They hate the Electoral College. They hate the fact that the Senate gives a voice to the minority states, and they want to get rid of it right now. And so we're seeing that in place where the majority states or the more powerful states are hating the fact that they're being held back because they want to force their will onto the states that maybe disagree with their lifestyle, their policy style. So thank goodness we have that in America. And we saw that that would take place here if we didn't have these checks.
Totally. And it's really offensive to those bigger states that they get held back, their agendas get held back in the Senate by a state like West Virginia. They're really actually super offended by that because West Virginia is a poor state. It's a white state. It's a state that is heavily dependent on coal, which they think is evil, right? And so, like, how can these backwoods country farmer folks, right?
Yeah, well, that's literally what they say.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how they feel. They hate us, right? We've said this before, but like they hate us, and they detest the idea that people have to work for a living and do something with their hands. We call them the muscular class, right? So they get personally offended by the idea that they have so much power. But, you know, Senator Joe Manchin is an incredibly powerful person, and the construction of our republic made that so. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and we should all admire that. Because I would rather have Joe Manchin, someone who's level-headed and has actually done something in his life at one point, be making decisions about the future of the republic over someone like AOC, who's never done anything with her life and who's actually really stupid.
Well, and that's something that's been coming up lately with the end of the Build Back Better plan, which was just killed by West Virginia,
it's dead.
Joe
It's
Manchin.
beautiful.
That was really wonderful. And of course, everybody said, well, how come the national priorities that everybody supports how come they're being stopped by just West Virginia? How can one senator stop that? But that's the point, is that it wasn't one senator. It was 50
It was 51
senators.
Yeah.
And it was them plus Joe Manchin that killed it.
Right.
Now, that's because they are all minorities and smaller when they're on their own and when they're considered individual states. So if you look at individual state versus individual state, California versus West Virginia, obviously there's some huge differences. But when you combine all of those minority voices, you have a formidable force,
Totally.
a force that is able to equally compete with the larger states. And that's what I loved. And that's where we're seeing that great diversity in America and that, difference of thought. But we had to reach a point where we said, no, too crazy for us.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives us this beautiful sense of order and structure that we would be so lacking. And we see through the paper here, they talk about how these smaller city-states that they had in Greece at the time would go to war with each other all the time. And there was nothing to stop that from happening because that was just like we said, the nature. And that eventually will obviously lead to downfall and destruction because there's always someone lurking in the shadows, right? There's always a bigger, more powerful enemy out there. In this case, it was Rome, who said, all right, well, they're fighting amongst each other. Let's swoop in and take them over. And that's exactly what happened to Greece. God love them.
Yeah. Well, that's how Publius ends this. Just,
right.
I mean, I don't mean to spoil it for anybody that hasn't read it, but paper 18 ends with him saying, now all of this took place, and then of course a foreign aggressor is like, oh yeah.
Right.
And so Rome swooped in and completely demolished them and just kind of put the final nail in the coffin,
Totally.
basically. So Publius is, one of their lessons is just the natural order of things was that this confederacy was going to collapse. The
Right.
structure of the state was going to collapse, but Rome coming in was that final nail in the coffin. Now, what you said earlier about you're just going to keep fighting, I thought that was interesting too. This paper, it's almost like a case study making the case for everything Publius said kind of in papers 2 through 7 or 2 through 8. Remember when we talked about the foreign concerns with disunion and then the domestic concerns? A lot of that was, well, you're going to fight each other a lot. And then when you're fighting each other a lot, foreign aggressors are going to come in.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about this so much, you guys, but it's really cool to see that this actually did happen and it's taking place exactly how the founders predicted it would. What Publius goes on to say is, it happened but too often, according to Plutarch, that the deputies of the strongest cities awed and corrupted those of the weaker. And that judgment went in favor of the most powerful party. So the stronger were attacking and oppressing the weaker, even though we're all supposed to be a part of this one big happy family. He says, even in the midst of defensive and dangerous wars with Persia and Macedon, the members never acted in concert. So they were always bickering, even when they're trying to fight the same ally, and were, more or fewer of them, eternally the dupes or the hirelings of the common enemy. And so each other, they were acting more like enemies and taking on the persona of an enemy than they were as allies. He said the intervals of foreign war were filled up by domestic vicissitudes and convulsions and carnage. So he's saying that whenever they weren't fighting a foreign aggressor, they were having to fight each other.
Right.
There was never a moment of peace because they just simply could not get along. They were acting like enemies no matter what, whether it was them dealing with each other as domestic enemies or dealing with foreign enemies. And that's such a great summary of what was threatened to us in America.
Yeah. This one is actually really interesting because it's one of the few in the Federalist that doesn't really make a super direct connection to anything that's happening in their modern times. It quite literally is just a history lesson, right? I mean, unless I'm reading it wrong, but I read this as like quite literally just a like, hey guys, reminder, here's a story, like take from it what you will, but this is a super in-depth warning if you're smart enough to understand it, which turns out that, they were at the time, thank God, but at the end of the day, if we would have gone down the path that Greece decided to go down, it just would have been a path of ruin and destruction and death. And the Grecians at the time couldn't have known that, but we were wise to learn from their mistakes. That's what we're missing in today's debate so often, though, is that we refuse to look to the past to learn from the mistakes of the people who came before us. And that's what defines wisdom, obviously, is being able to do that. And I'm unfortunately, not surprised that we're not being led by wise people. I wish that we were, obviously, and I wish that we had the national, strength and fortitude to demand more from our leaders, which we should, but unfortunately we don't. And so I think that this paper is really important, as dense as it may be for those who are going to be reading it at home, to actually dive into and really try and understand, because correct me if I'm wrong, but fundamentally the point of this entire thing that we're doing here with Freedom Papers and Turning Point in general is to get people to dive into things like this and learn from them at a younger age, and use that knowledge to become the future leaders, to become the next generation of senators and representatives and governors and hopefully presidents, et cetera. So I hope that, you kind of take what you read in this paper and do as our founders did and learn the lessons that they're trying to give you here. And that's really important to do if we want to see this beautiful experiment known as America continue for generations to come.
Well, actually, that's a perfect point for what I want to talk about next is this naivete.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't understand history, not only are you going to probably repeat it because you won't be able to prevent it when other people are trying to do bad things that would repeat the bad parts of history, but you also, if you're put in a position of power, you might make the same mistakes.
Totally.
And so it's kind of up to you if you want a position of power, if you want to influence the world around you, you need to learn what was done before your time to make sure that you yourself don't make those same mistakes that were made by other leaders.
Right.
So it's a really great point. And what he's saying in this one, moving to the next section, Publius says, after the conclusion of the war, he was talking about a war that they ended up with another country. After the conclusion of the war, it appears that one of the societies within Greece required that a number of the cities should be turned out of the Confederacy for the unfaithful part they had acted in the war. So they wanted to kick people out of the Confederacy because they weren't satisfied with their commitment.
Yeah.
It says, this piece of history proves at once the inefficiency of the Union, the ambition and jealousy of its most powerful members, and the dependent and degraded condition of the rest. These smaller members, though entitled by the theory of their system to revolve in equal pride and majesty around the common center, had become in fact satellites of the orbs of primary magnitude. And from what I got out of that is that it's kind of embarrassing, but yeah, the little guys took for granted what was just written on a piece of paper in this agreement that, oh, well, we're not the same sizes, but we're all on the same equal footing. And we all have one representative that votes in the league, and we're all going to have the same amount of power in this, the same amount of decision-making power. That just wasn't the case.
No,
and they took that for granted. They had to learn the hard way, and that's the lesson that our founders took is, listen, this is not going to work out if all we have is this league trying to put a bigger state and a smaller state together and tell them that they're equal.
Yeah, which is what eventually led to the Great Compromise, where we ended up with our bicameral system of legislatures with the House and the Senate. Which obviously had two different objectives in what they were trying to accomplish. One was to represent the masses uniformly, and one was to provide equal representation to the states at large. So that's really important. I want to do a quick plug here while we're talking about important things to read. Everyone should read Thucydides. I think it's one of the most important books ever written in the history of the world. It's Thucydides, The History of the Peloponnesian War. And he goes through what we're going through in 18 in extensive depth. It's the first piece of history ever written, the first active historiography.
Is that a
That's
word?
a real word. That's a real word. That's a real one.
I should know that. I call myself a history nerd. I don't know that.
You're a
Sorry, guys.
Historiographer.
I'm relatable.
There you go. We'll go with that.
Whenever I don't know something, I'm like, I'm relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't no DC elite.
You're damn right you're not.
I ain't no Charlie Kirk.
We're Texans, right? I'll allow that. And I do want to make one point that stood out to me there about knowing your history. Be very aware of the fact that there's people out there today, they're bad actors who are trying to intentionally subvert what history is, right? They're trying to totally whitewash it or blackwash it in some senses. And can I say, I don't think I can say that.
I don't know.
But the 1619 Project is one example, obviously, but one that's kind of standing out to me recently. And I think that she actually believes this, maybe she's just really stupid, but I like her generally, is Whoopi Goldberg. This will be a little bit dated by the time it comes out, but she'll probably be back on air on The View by this time this comes out, sadly. But she made this really egregious comment that the Holocaust, right, wasn't about race, right? She was like, well, it's just two white people or two different groups of white people fighting each other, the Germans and the Jews, which is so wildly inaccurate. And I'm wondering, does she actually think that, or is that just the garbage that's being spewed today? But she's too old to go to college, so it's not like she's learning in a classroom. But the moral of the story is that don't just take what the people who are given positions of power or influence tell you for granted. Actually, you need to know your stuff, because if you don't, then you're going to believe this garbage that, oh yeah, the Holocaust didn't really matter. It was a white person problem. I don't give a damn about that. The suffering of millions upon millions upon millions of people. Whatever. Well, no, that's a terrible position to take. You have to learn from your history, like you said, or else you're going to repeat it. And that's trite and that's like a cliche or whatever, but it's actually really, really wise and important.
Yeah, well,
in my opinion.
And I was talking about that. I did a video on the Whoopi Goldberg situation, and I said, I don't think it's fair or accurate, because I think it's important to be accurate. I don't think it's fair or accurate to look at her and say, wow, you are trying to change history and spout lies about history because you're trying to repeat what happened back then.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's the case in this situation. So I'm not going to accuse her of something like that. But what we do need to understand is that the more people like her with a platform like that speak out and spread this misinformation and spread these lies and dilute what it means and what happened back then, the more that assists people and the eventual recreation of an event like that, because we aren't going to understand that, for example, the Nazis thought the Jews were an inferior race.
Yeah, they didn't see them as white
were
people.
a threat to other races and wanted to eliminate the Jewish race.
Yeah.
And that's why we could get into it, but it was a concept of cultural Marxism. And people say that Hitler wasn't a Marxist, but when you look at the writings of the people around Hitler, they talk about how he did like Marx, and he just wouldn't identify as a Marxist or talk about him because he didn't like the Bolsheviks. And the Russian communists didn't like him. And so they didn't want to be considered near each other. They hated each other. So he was like, I'm not going to publicly identify with this guy, but yeah, I'm a cultural Marxist. And instead of dividing people class versus class like a Marxist would, he did it with a cultural thing, in this situation, race. And so he split the white people versus the Jewish people in this example. What we see in America today, though, is you're splitting people because we have all these woke classes. You can split people on race or sexual identity or pronoun or all the things, because they like make up all these new little class identities and stuff. It's quite strange, but we have all this, it's like a multifaceted approach to Marxism. It's so weird.
It's this
and dangerous.
Yeah, it's incredibly dangerous. It's a hierarchy of disorder, and they basically create this weird social construct theory. And this is actually something that's being rolled out, and you should pay attention to it because it's going to be around soon. It's called your your GAY score, and that's an acronym. I'm not saying GAY. It's gender equity and inclusion or something like that, and it's GAI. I could be
like DEI,
totally screwing
like the
this
diversity,
up.
equity, inclusion.
Yeah, it's kind of like that,
gender
right?
Too.
Yeah, and so basically, I think I butchered that, but I'll get to the point of it. There's this company called BlackRock, which controls a vast amount of capital in the United States and around the world. And the founder of it, or the CEO and the chairman of it, Larry Fink, recently came out and he said, if you are not a socially woke enough company, is basically what he's saying, well, we're not going to give money to you, right? We're not going to fund your equity, and you're going to be left to rot and die on the vine. So there's a lot of companies out there that are good, hardworking American companies that are going to die basically at the hands of this weird social justice kind of garbage. And that's where you're seeing how dangerous this is in action, right? Because we're going to see entire parts of our economy just completely crumble at the hands of this weird woke thing that actually has no bearing in reality. It is cultural Marxism, and it's being put into place by people who, I think are just really misguided and stupid, obviously, but actually really evil. Like the fact that you would allow yourself to be that stupid and that misguided, that takes a little bit of intentionality, right? And it's incredibly concerning. And the most powerful people are subscribed to this ideology. And that should be really, really like a red flag and fire alarms going off for everybody to say, hey, this isn't just something that's being taught to our kids. It's being adopted at the highest levels of government, the highest levels of media, the highest levels of corporate America. And all of that together, combined with the indoctrination of our kids, that's enough to kill us in a really, really, really decisive manner.
Yeah. I mean, something that I've noticed is people that didn't used to pay attention or didn't think it was too big of a deal. They just maybe thought that Biden was dumb, our presidency, a little chaotic, and the administration just a little naive, whatever it may be. A lot of them, especially the military guys, they're starting to say things like it's too much at this point to say that any of this any of this behavior, any of these actions by corporations or media or the bureaucracy of the administration is just naivete or ignorance.
No.
It's just too much at this point, specifically with things like Afghanistan. And we could go on a rant, but we've got like so much of Greece that we need to discuss. And like you said earlier, I like this paper because it's just a story. It's a little bit of a shakeup from the rest of the Federalist Papers. Sometimes they're super nerdy and in-depth about policy and structure, but this one is just telling the stories. So this next paragraph is just about what ended up happening in Greece, the downfall. And I wanted to read it because I thought it was quite interesting. Have you seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio? Not him. What's the guy that's dating Katy Perry?
Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom. He's in the one about the Peloponnesian Wars. I cannot speak Greek. I should not go to Greece. No, it's when he steals the wife of the king.
Oh, Troy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then he steals her, and then that starts the Peloponnesian Wars. Now, that's why I've always been interested in it. So when I got to this book, I was like, oh, I'm going to love this paper because he talks about Peloponnesian Wars in this. Yeah, I think it's in the next couple paragraphs. But that being said, the next paragraph says, had the Greeks been as wise as they were courageous, they would have been admonished by experience of the necessity of closer union, and would have availed themselves of the peace which followed their success against the Persian arms to establish such a reformation. Instead of this obvious policy, Athens and Sparta, inflated with the victories and the glory they had acquired, became first rivals and then enemies. And so he's saying they fought a war together, Athens and Sparta, and then instead of just saying, dang, we did that, we should stay together and remain this accomplished united state, instead they decided to allow it to go to their heads, the power that they won from winning that war, and the power, the wealth, the status they both gained from winning that war got to their heads. They ended up fighting it out because the stronger wanted to win.
Right.
So that's what happened there. So instead of this obvious policy, Athens and Sparta, inflated with the victories and the glory they had acquired, became first rivals and then enemies, and did each other infinitely more mischief than they had suffered from the people that they fought the war against together in the first place.
Because obviously.
What a good statement, right? I mean, it's like you've done more trouble to yourself than your own enemy did in the beginning. Their mutual jealousies, fears, hatreds, and injuries ended in the celebrated Peloponnesian War, which itself ended in the ruin and slavery of the Athenians who had begun it.
Right. And the Athenians were, like you said, they're super, confident in their ability to go out there and just absolutely dominate. But at the end of the day, they were not able to, and they fell really short of that. Lincoln always said, if America falls, it's going to fall from within. And that's exactly what we saw happen in Greece. Lincoln was also a student of Greece and Rome, obviously. And what we would be on track towards if we were to adopt what we, laid out in the Articles of Confederation would be this really imminent internal revolt and fall, because these larger states would conquer, and then they would not be complacent because that's not in their nature. So they would just continually be on this track of, we're going to keep going until we stop, and eventually that's going to lead to a little bit of complacency, and then boom, you get killed by Rome, right, in Carthage.
Yep, and that's where we're headed now.
Yep.
So next is what happens once these guys start fighting and they start weakening themselves after getting a little too cocky. The foreign aggressors start coming.
Right.
And so Publius says, as a weak government, when not at war, is ever agitated by internal dissensions, so these never fail to bring on fresh calamities from abroad. And so when you're weak on the inside, you are going to get attacked.
Obviously.
And that's been something not just in Greece, not just in Rome, whatever
That's
it may
true
be,
everywhere.
not just in America. It's happening. And that's why people are so nervous today on America.
As they should be.
That's why, Russia and China, they're chomping at the bit.
Well, yeah.
Because they love seeing whenever President Biden can't even say a sentence. They love seeing him make a fool of us. They love seeing him abandon American citizens and allies in Afghanistan, because now they know that even our allies aren't going to trust us anymore.
Why
and they are just like, wow, this is a little easy.
Yeah, I mean, they're chomping at the bit, right? And we don't even have impressive leaders anymore. It's not like we have a Patton or, an Eisenhower or something. Like, we're stuck with Milley and Lloyd Austin, who are just fat and lazy, and they couldn't do a push-up if they wanted to. And they're more worried about race and masks and wokeness than they are about actually defending America. So, yeah, they're chomping at the bit. They're ready to kill us all if they could.
I was talking to some military guys, and my dad's in the military too, and so I was hearing their concerns. Not my dad's, but just because I'm in those circles. I was hearing their concerns, and he was explaining how there's cycles of leadership. And so after a few years, you get moved out, changes of command, all this stuff. And he said, after one or two more rounds of these changes and these cycles, the more they continue to take the advantage of open positions in these cycle changes. They take advantage of them, the woke people, by inserting, honestly, women and people that are of
Transgenders.
minority categories
Right.
that, you know, they're not terrible or anything, but they don't have the experience and they haven't actually served a lot of the time, and they don't have the kind of qualifications you're going to need if we enter into an actual situation of war with China or Russia.
Right.
And so they were saying we are like 1 or 2 cycles away from this woke cycle. Now pretty much everybody at the top is going to be these unqualified people that were given positions because of what they look like.
Yeah, they're like
That's
affirmative
really
action picks.
dangerous.
It's incredibly dangerous. Of course it is. I mean, tell me that Rachel Levine or whatever, the X-Men, the transgender, right? That thing is going to be able to win a war against China. No, obviously not. Right? While they're banning sissy men, we're promoting them. And so, yeah, that's incredibly dangerous. And we have to get back to the point where it's not like frowned upon to be a man.
No.
It's not frowned upon to be tough, and it's not frowned upon to be wise and intelligent and well-read and strong and stand up for your country. There's a reason why Russia didn't really jack with the United States or jack with Ukraine or do anything in the 4 years that President Trump was in office, right? Like, that's super obvious to anyone who's paying attention, because when President Obama was in office, Russia invaded Crimea, and then there was like a 4-year hiatus of any foreign aggression on the world stage, generally speaking, and there's even a period of peace in the Middle East because America was strong, and like they had this bold front that said, don't fuss with me, and you know, you're going to regret it if you do. Fire and fury, remember that?
That's something I feel terrible on. I mean, we take it for granted, but when you consider how fearful people around the globe must be of American elections in terms of what those idiots, no offense, but like our population is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
They must think, if those idiots make the wrong decision, we are all screwed.
Yeah.
That's what they have to think every 4 years because of America, because we can't get our crap together.
Right. Well, that's the responsibility that comes with being a global superpower. Whenever you want to start waving around the big stick and dropping atom bombs on countries, then you kind of assume this responsibility to say, yeah, we are the people who are in charge, so you know it's up to us to keep our house in order, and we failed to do that.
It's a shame.
2 years ago almost, right?
Yeah.
And now we're seeing the consequences of that. So it's incredibly important for the people of America, the citizens of America, to get involved, get educated, you know, and realize the implications that their votes have. Because it's much more than just what happens here and what happens, you know, in the Congress and stuff like that. There are incredibly important global implications to everything that happens with American elections.
Yeah.
So if we don't recognize that, then we're going to be in incredible danger.
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons I hope the average American has learned is the value of peace through strength.
Of course.
I mean, it's not just a talking point.
No.
It's a way of being. It's a world philosophy at this point, that when the world superpowers are strong, the bad actors are going to not do anything, and they're not going to hurt others. And so that it's just really a shame. I feel bad. I feel bad thinking about it, because every 4 years, imagine having to be on edge. Like, we're already like, domestic issues are going to suck,
Right.
and mandates and forced things can come down onto us. But imagine wondering, like, am I going to get invaded because somebody like President Biden is now in office and Putin thinks that he can now attack us? Like, is my home going to be bombed because of who is elected in America? But what Publius says in that same kind of concept of, once you start to look weak, your foreign enemies are going to start coming at you. They say, such were the consequences of the fallacious principle on which this interesting establishment was founded. And he's talking about Greece, the Confederacy. Had Greece, says a judicious observer on her fate, been united by a stricter confederation and persevered in her union, she would never have sworn the chains of Macedon, and might have proved a barrier to the vast projects of Rome. She might have had a chance to protect herself from Rome as they were coming at her.
Yeah, and there's something to be said there about how really there wasn't any reason why Greece and Rome couldn't live kind of peacefully together if they wanted to. I mean, sure, they occupied the same region, but at the time we were seeing a lot of threats come from the east. We were seeing threats come from the north. England was starting to become a force to be reckoned with, and then the Goths, who came from kind of the Nordic regions, right? There was a lot of things bubbling up, and if Greece and Rome would have like kept their stuff together, each of them independently, they could have been really, really strong allies. And if they wanted to talk about forming a real alliance for the ages, they could have done it. But obviously they didn't, because one was weak, and weakness begets,
Yeah.
being
Kind
conquered.
of reminds me of like an America and a Canada.
Totally.
Like two large bodies, but I think that they were too competitive with each other. Like Canada's kind of meek. You know what I
totally.
mean? Like we aren't worried about
But we've never won a
Canada
war without Canada,
invading
though.
us.
Let me
But
be clear.
And so
right?
it's kind of like interesting if you think of people that we border, because a lot of the Federalist Papers are about what happens when you are constantly fighting with your border country. We have a lot to be thankful for that we
Yeah,
just
we
have
really do.
Canada up top.
Well,
I mean,
and we have a
imagine
lot
if
to
we
be
had like
thankful.
two Mexico versions
Yeah, no, it'd
on
be
the top
bad
and
news.
bottom.
It'd be really bad news.
Or if we were like a tiny little country in the middle of Europe or the Middle East. Oh my gosh.
Well, and we've talked
we're
about
blessed.
the geographic advantages of America and
By
why
providence.
it's by providence. It's totally manifested by God, where we have oceans on either side of us, right?
Mhm.
That's totally unique to anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So America is a truly blessed nation, and we're not living up to that. Like there's a sense of self-preservation that we have whenever we go to the voting booths, that we have to say, look, God gave us something really good. It's up to us to actually preserve it. And if we don't, then that providence will run out eventually. We see it all throughout history, right?
And speaking of that, that's kind of the end of that first attempt that we're
Mhm.
talking about with Greece. And now Publius brings in another version. And so we're going to move on into that. He says the Achaean League, as it is called, was another society of Grecian republics which supplies us with valuable instruction. The union here was far more intimate, and I thought that was interesting. The union here was far more intimate, and its organization much wiser than in the preceding instance. It will accordingly appear that though not exempt from a similar catastrophe, it by no means equally deserved it. And I loved it. I highlighted that sentence and like did a little underline because I was like, okay, so what made it so special is what I'm wondering. And apparently it was this idea of a more intimate union, and it was wiser, probably because it was able to look back at history and try not to repeat what happened before it. It says the cities composing this league retained their municipal jurisdiction, anointed their own officers, and enjoyed a perfect equality. The Senate, in which they were represented, had the sole and exclusive right of peace and war, of sending and receiving ambassadors, of entering into treaties and alliances, of appointing a chief magistrate, or, as he was called, a praetor? Is that how it is?
Praetor.
Who commanded their armies and who, with the advice and consent of 10 of the senators, not only administered the government in the recess of the Senate, but also had a great share in its deliberations when assembled. And so that we see kind of more of a multiple branches of government at this federal level that they've now created. That's what I kind of got out of it.
Yeah.
And that's not something we had in the Articles of Confederation, which is why we now have 3 branches of government under the Constitution.
Right. And then another line that stood out to me was where they're talking about how the Achaean League kind of fell apart. Let me find it here. Philip was conquered, Macedon subdued, and then a new crisis ensued the League. Dissensions broke out among its members. These the Romans fostered, right? So what that says to me is like, even if you build up a strong kind of system, but then you allow it to be, riled by dissent among members and warring parties within your own confederacy, well, don't expect your enemies not to exploit that. And that's exactly what we saw during the Cold War, where we had, Russians coming in, Soviets coming in, and exploiting things in divisions like the Civil Rights Movement and the anti-war movement against Vietnam. There was a lot of trained Marxist activity that came straight from the Soviet Union that the FBI worked hard to stop, but they couldn't. And don't ever think that our enemies are not going to kind of what's the word here? Sneakily, very sneakily come in and try to subvert the national unity that we have. Because they will. They'll infiltrate us. They will infiltrate us. Look at the Confucius institutes that popped up all over the country, right? The Chinese, they come in and they start teaching these, these morals of communism and evil, which they are. China is evil. And then that sows dissent. And don't think that it's a coincidence right now that we're all sitting here calling each other racist and saying that, you're evil because of the color of your skin, you're bad because of, how much money you make, et cetera, et cetera. This is all very intentional by our enemies, in my opinion. This might be tinfoil hatty, but it's very intentional. And they are doing it because they know that if we can be weak on the inside, then they can exploit us from the outside.
Yeah.
So
actually, I was watching, so I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't like
Good for you.
screen time.
Right.
I like doing this kind of work because I don't have to look at screens. Like we're just kind of talking
It's
and I
nice.
get to read and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I am revolting against screen time. I don't know
Good
if I
for
told
you.
you that. I am trying to make active moves to reduce how much time on internet and screen I have. And I want
wish
to
I
end
could do
up literally on my property with a desktop computer in my office, a landline phone in the home, and then a cell phone that I keep for, emergencies and any quick conversation. But that's it. And so I'll go into my office and check for an hour and look at my emails
That sounds
and
like
stuff.
heaven.
And then, so that's my goal. If you talk about like career goals, that's a career goal for me because I don't have career goals. And I'm a woman and I want babies.
Right.
And I also want to do passions and hobbies. Of course. You can do that. It's okay. So, sorry, we're going off the rails here. Now, that being said, I don't watch a lot of TV, but what I do love is to listen to like documentaries in the background that are on YouTube and other things. And so Glenn Beck just came out with a cool like 40-minute 3 chalkboard review sessions. You know his chalkboard things?
Yeah.
So I love those. I love seeing the connection of the dots. I'm visual. And so he does a one on communist China. And I can't remember the term that they were saying that the communist Chinese use, but it's similar to what Rome did to Greece. And it's it might be acquire elites. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know if that's the right word, but communist Chinese actors in the government use this as the term for what they mean to win over and get control of elites in America because they know they can't invade us. They know they don't want to ruin our economy, stuff like that. They want to control us, though. And so they have this term, and I'm not sure if this is right, but it's to basically acquire elites.
Yeah, they start picking them off.
And so that's what we see here. I just thought that was interesting.
And a serious country would never allow that. There's things that you can do to stop that. We allow the People's Republic of China to have, lobbying influence over members of Congress. The fact that we even allow China to have any say whatsoever in our country. The fact that we allow Chinese in our country to begin with without an extensive vetting process. I don't know if I can say that either, but I'm going to.
No, but that's the point. It's not about their race. But if
No.
you are coming from communist China
We should
into
look
the
at
country,
you with apprehension.
then your background should be evaluated, I think.
Completely.
I don't see why that's not bad to say, or I don't see why that's
it's
bad to
racist
say.
and I'm a white supremacist, right?
Well, that's the thing. What kills me is the left accuses us of being racist for calling out communist China when we're saying no. And most Chinese Americans fled communist China because they either had family members killed or they were oppressed or they escaped camps and they came here. They lived horrible lives and they came to America after being oppressed by the CCP. So they probably don't care if we call it the CCP, and they understand what we are talking about when we attack China, not American Chinese people or people of the Chinese race or heritage.
It doesn't matter.
It's totally different.
Right.
And that's the thing. The American Chinese people fully understand this.
Of course they do.
aren't falling for the white Antifa, Black Lives Matter supporting leftists that think they're going to play the race card again with something like this. This is about ideology, baby.
And that's why the whole Stop Asian Hate movement kind of fettered out, because you never really could get Asians involved in it. It was all these ivory tower white liberals saying, "Oh my God, you have to stop Asian hate, you racist bigot," yada yada.
It was super fake.
Yeah, and I have plenty of friends who are of Asian descent, whether they're Japanese, Korean, Chinese, etc. And I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this? Do you really feel unsafe in this country?" It's like, I feel a lot safer in America than I did in communist China, obviously. Speaking of screen time and TV shows, this is just a fun little thing that came to my mind. The West Wing. Have you ever watched The West Wing?
I actually haven't.
It's really good.
Like I said, I don't watch a lot of
I know,
things,
and you
I'm
shouldn't.
not really cultured.
You shouldn't, and I try not to either. Anyway, but there's a really cool episode of The West Wing where there's this group of refugees who came from communist China, and they go to meet with the president because China's requesting them to be sent back, obviously, but they weren't sure whether or not they're actually Christian refugees. And so he calls them into the Oval Office. It's really dramatic, right? But he asks them to pronounce a word, and this is a biblical sense, and he wants them to say shibboleth. I don't know if you've ever read this in the Bible, but there's, and I'm not a theologian, right? But it's as simple. It can be as simple as that, right? Are you a Christian? Do you care about God? Do you believe in the values that built our nation? And that was a test that they used to use back in the olden days of the Bible, and if you spoke the language of the good and the right and the just, then you were someone who could be accepted into society. And so that goes to show that we're not trying to exclude Chinese people from America. We're trying to exclude communists who want to see our downfall, right? And like I said, a serious nation would take those measures, and we would actually give a damn about the preservation of our republic. But we're not a serious nation anymore. Any nation that allows ourselves to be invaded from the south at the rate of 2 million people per year is not a serious nation. Any nation that would go to war over another nation's borders while leaving ours open to invasion is not a serious nation.
Yeah.
And so if you don't think that makes us look weak, and if you don't think that makes us vulnerable to attack from the outside, then you're stupid and you're not paying attention. Sorry, but you are. So it's time that we wake up and just realize that America, the America that we grew up in, we're young people, but even the America that we grew up in is gone. And to the boomers out there, the America that you grew up in, the really pretty nice America of the 1980s, that's way gone. That's been gone for a long time, right? So wake up, smell the roses. It's not as nice as it used to be. And it's time to get serious about actually protecting this damn beautiful republic that our founders laid out for us.
Amen.
Sorry.
I mean, what a great way to close. Connor, thank you for making so many great comparisons
Sure.
to back then and now, because that's exactly what this paper was. Let's close off with what Publius ended on. Publius says, I have thought it not superfluous to give the outlines of this important portion of history, both because it teaches more than one lesson and because, as a supplement to the outlines of the Achaean Constitution, it emphatically illustrates the tendency of federal bodies rather to anarchy among the members than to tyranny in the head. Now, this is the question, Connor, and we are running out of time, but I forgot I wanted to ask you this. Also, something just fell. Sorry if there was a thump. Now, that being said, do you agree with that last answer? That might be its own episode topic, because Publius, I agree with him all of this paper, and then all of a sudden he says that it's more likely that there will be tendency to anarchy between the members of the Confederacy than there will be likely tyranny at the head of the government. Now, we're experiencing massive federal tyranny right now, so that's why I was like, bing, a light bulb is going off in my head of, well, I don't know about now. Now, that being said, we can only say that because we don't have to worry about right now states fighting with each other. We don't have to deal with the negative consequences. So we're privileged to be able to say, well, our greater threat seems to be the head of federal tyranny. So that was just something I was like, weird way to end it.
It's almost like a weird little cliffhanger, but I think generally speaking, he's right. And in the context of the rest of the paper, he's right. And
we're privileged to be able to say, well, we don't have these problems, so now our big problem is tyranny at the federal head.
Amen. And that's what we're dealing with right now, and that's what we have to fix. And the time is coming.
Great. Well, thank you, Connor. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to follow Freedom Papers Podcast. Subscribe and give us 5 stars, please, on Apple and Spotify, and comment on the YouTube video. But tell us this is the best podcast you ever heard. Just kidding. Say something, though. We would really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Environmentally friendly and organic. The crunchies better step back because this girl is walking the walk and not just talking the talk.
Shh. Look at that thing.
Louis C.K. is allegedly in Kiev for a stand-up show, even though it's literally being bombed to smithereens at the moment. Joey King says that after filming The Conjuring, she developed this freaky disorder. Could it be demons? There's a reason why you haven't seen this A-list star in any movies for years. They were blacklisted in Hollywood for criticizing, you guessed it, China. And it's Monday, so of course that means I answer conservative questions sent in for Pop Quiz. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics. Comedian Louis C.K. still performed a stand-up show in Kiev over the weekend.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay?
The following is for entertainment purposes only.
Even though they're in the middle of a Russian invasion.
Bomb, 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 bomb. You gonna arrest me?
I heard that Ukraine's interior ministry banned men from ages 18 and 60 from leaving the country. So this war is about to get real weird if Louis C.K. gets drafted, as well as Sean Penn, who's weirdly also in the country filming a documentary.
I don't think you're disrespecting a future U.S. Army soldier.
Not to let the witch out of the wardrobe or anything, but Louis C.K. is one of the best theologians and writers of all time. So if they could spare him from a draft, I think that'd be for the best. Dude, do not mess with demons. How many times do we have to talk about this? How do these Hollywood actors not see the pattern? The Exorcist curse and the Poltergeist, all these people die or weird things happen to them, and the cast of The Conjuring is no different. Just ask Joey King.
It's that smell again. Oh my God.
Joey King went on the Drew Barrymore show and said that after she filmed The Conjuring in 2013, she developed a blood disorder out of nowhere only while she was on set. Not when she left set, just while she was on.
Some weird stuff happened on set, along with the movie being scary. It's true. I developed this bizarre, rare, out of nowhere blood disorder. And basically my body, like all the red platelets from my body were like drained. They were just like gone. So I had like high risk of internal bleeding, and I was potentially gonna need like a blood transfusion. It was so dramatic. So I had to every day before work and after work go to the hospital, get my blood taken. And then all of a sudden I got home and I've never had a problem with my blood since. Like,
don't you think that's crazy?
Yes.
I think it's crazy.
It's every time I think about it, like, I just like shudder a little bit.
Here's what makes this story such an interesting discussion. The Conjuring, I didn't know this, was written by Christian screenwriters, Chad and Carrie Hills, who have said in a past interview that they love doing true stories where good conquers evil, and they've said that they hope the movies in the Conjuring franchise positively affect someone who is on the edge of faith and somehow gives them the strength they need to become Christians. Such a hot take that's not on a Tuesday, but I'm super anxious to hear if you agree or disagree with that.
Nancy?
Do you ever watch Pretty Woman reruns on E and see Richard Gere and think, gee, whatever happened to him? Well, I'll tell you what happened to him. He was blacklisted in Hollywood because after this movie came out, he criticized China at the 1993 Oscars.
I wonder if Deng Xiaoping is actually watching this right now with his children and his grandchildren, and with the knowledge that what a horrendous human rights situation there is in China, not only towards their own people, but to Tibet as well. And I was wondering if this kind of, if something miraculous and really kind of movie-like could happen here, where we could all kind of send love and truth and kind of sanity to Deng Xiaoping right now in Beijing, that he will take his troops and take the Chinese away from Tibet and allow these people to live as free, independent people again.
Yeah. After that, Richard Gere's career slowed down substantially. Check his IMDb. And the reason is because big studios were worried that if his name even appeared in the credits of a movie, China wouldn't approve the movie to be released in their country. The other thing that's interesting to me is the applause at the Oscars after he says all this.
So, thoughts. We send this thought.
You know, if a speech like this happened today, it would be dead silent in the room. In the early 90s, a lot of actors were still naive about how criticism of China could completely end their career. Yeah, there would be none of that applause nowadays. Justice for Richard Gere, though. Every week, I answer questions that you've sent me from the link in the Politics bio. It is time for Pop Quiz. Eddie from New York asked, how did politics come to be? I was like, why is everyone in the conservative movement boring? I'm sick of it. I want to talk about fun stuff in pop culture without compromising my values as a proud conservative woman. Bam, boom, bing, politics is born. Rainey from New Jersey wants to know if I could travel anywhere, where would I want to go? Probably your dad's house. I'm joking, but seriously, do you guys not pay attention? This question has been sent in like 100 times.
I'm like, girl, you look crazy.
Bailey from California wrote in, what was your first car and what is your dream car? My first car was a silver 2005 Jetta with a Hello Kitty sticker on the back. My dream car has always been a white Range Rover with black rims, but now I'm wondering if that's too basic. Should I change it?
Yes! Yes!
Marin from Utah asked, do you tan, sunless tan, or spray tan? You're always glowing. I do it all, honey. When I don't have time to lay out, I fake tan at home with various products. They're all saved on my glam highlight on my personal Instagram, but I do live in Scottsdale, Arizona, so when I have time to lay out, I'll get pretty dark, except my face. It never tans for some reason. I have to use fake tan on my face all year.
Kramer! Oh, man. I think I cooked myself. Look at your skin. Stick a fork in me, Jerry. I'm done.
Alex HRH Collection is by far the most unique guest to come onto the Spillover so far, and I really love that in the latest episode, you get to do this deep dive into her personal life that you really don't see that much of on her YouTube channel. We talk about her divorce, if she wants to be a mom, her relationship with God, which actually ended up being very funny, her thoughts on abortion, and more. And even though we get into some more serious areas for her, it's still the same Alex HRH Collection you love, because we also talk skinny fridge, being an ex-fat person, and why you should never ask her for a link. That is up now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Politics YouTube. Leave a 5-star review or you're ugly. By the way, before we get zucked and, taken out the wazoo in this piece, make sure that you are subscribed to Politics on YouTube, because we post not only every Politics episode there, but you can watch every episode of The Spillover live from Vietnam. No, I'm just joking. Live every single time we drop a new Spillover episode right there on midnight Eastern. So anyway, make sure you're doing that. You're turning on notifications. You're liking everything. You're commenting on everything. You're subscribing to everything, because for all we know, we're only here today. And show the OG Politics some love on this Monday by liking this episode. Let me know if you agree with the Conjuring writers. That whole situation, totally wild. I feel like pretty controversial. DM this episode to someone who owns a hamster and tell them that that is them at the beginning. Also, click the save button, because that gives us an extra little boost. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Your Monday life advice is, if you make a fake juice card to get around NYC, don't tag the places you sneak into while you're there in real time, or they will kick you out and ban you for life and tell you that you put their whole business in jeopardy because you're a dirty, unjuiced person. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Support Politics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's where the real magic happens. Follow us there at Politics.